Right. The Scituate School Committee is committed to providing an environment of respect during meetings. We ask all members to interact in a polite manner, even when there is disagreement. We value the participation of our community and want all participants, including marginalized and minoritized communities, to feel welcomed and respected. We ask our committee members and all who participate to commit to these standards to support and respect our community. I'll call the March 16, 2026 Scituate School Committee meeting to order tonight at 6:01 p.m.
Before we begin, I wanted to make a motion to reorder one of the items on our agenda.
Yes.
I would like to make a motion to move the new school naming discussion to after public comment.
Okay, so Ms. Fenwick makes a motion to separate the discussion, new school naming discussion out and have an update, then have public comment, and then have the discussion after that before our student report. So that's the motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Lindblom. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, great. All right, so we will begin tonight with a statement. Let's see. New school naming. So we have an update on redistricting. I read some accompanying slides for the update. Right. I would like to take this opportunity to publicly share an update on the redistricting process. First, I would like to say that no decisions have been made. There is still time for input and feedback. Also, we intentionally gave this process an 18-month runway to be thoughtful and transparent throughout and to be able to scaffold the transition for students, families, and staff. As you may recall, this process has been in the works for nearly 10 years, beginning with a facility study in 2017 to analyze our aging elementary buildings. From there, it was determined that both Cushing and Hatherley schools, being nearly identical footprints, had reached their usefulness, and we submitted a statement of interest to the MSBA in 2019 and were selected in 2020. Since that time, in addition to monthly school building meetings, which are all open to the public, as well as regular updates at school committee meetings, the district has held 8 public information sessions, both in person and via Zoom, detailing the project in process and progress. We have consistently shared the MSBA's formula, which they use to evaluate the capacity of our 4 current elementary buildings to determine the space and enrollment capacity for our new building. The MSBA set the new building capacity at 460 students, with over 368 students at Cushing and 250 students at Hatherley, totaling 618 students. We have always known and transparently discussed that we will need to redistrict. We have ample space at Wampatuck and Jenkins schools for more elementary students to accommodate this need, as MSBA determined. Just to be very clear, I would like to state, at no point was it ever stated that any student was guaranteed a spot at the new school or that grade 5 SHS class of 2035 Cushing students would be kept together. Cushing and Hatherley schools are both closing, and the buildings are being consolidated from a district perspective in terms of resources. The Cushing-Hatherley project has always been a working title for the design and construction process and has never signified a merger of the 2 existing school communities. Hence tonight's discussion on the naming of the new building. Redistricting students is also a component of this work. The publicly shared guiding principles for redistricting have always been, 1, ensuring an inclusive process. We have held 2 public meetings so far in person and via Zoom with public input via 2 surveys available on a dedicated website for anyone to access. 2, minimizing social emotional impact on children. 18-month runway with district leadership team and SEL team, as well as our new SEA director. Every elementary school is currently working with their school council, which includes principals, teachers, and caregivers elected by their peers to draft a school improvement plan goal focused on redistricting supports at their school over the coming year plus. We already have strong models to learn from, both in the transition planning that already occurs when we bring students together for sixth grade and from past experiences of redistricting in town from which we can learn. 3, keeping families and neighborhoods together. The initial survey asked specifically for feedback on planning blocks created to facilitate redistricting so that neighborhoods would be zoned in cohesive blocks that make sense to the people who live in them. These planning blocks form the basis for the draft plans that have been shared back with the community and are still able to be edited with community feedback. 4, communication. As stated above, we have held a number of public meetings throughout the entire school building process and engaged the community throughout the visioning and design of the building. The particulars of the building itself, information sessions prior to the town-wide vote on the project, and ongoing public meetings since. Redistricting itself, as mentioned, has included 2 public sessions, 2 open surveys thus far, and as noted at the top of my remarks, will be slowed down to allow for additional opportunities for feedback, which I will detail shortly. I'm happy to share that our project is $14 million under budget and on schedule, which has led us to confidently be able to begin an inclusive redistricting plan as prioritized and discussed back in 2023. We held our initial public information session in December 2025, in which 5 priorities were established to guide this work, which connect directly back to the original established 2023 guiding principles. 1, balancing enrollment across all 3 schools with approximately 20 students per classroom. 2, keeping students close to home. 3, minimizing the number of students who need to move from their existing school. 4, maintaining contiguous intact neighborhoods. 5, facilitating efficient transportation and reasonable bus times. Following the most recent public info session, during which 2 plans were shared with the community for review and feedback, the internal planning team has received thoughtful input from stakeholders. It is very important to the school committee and the district not only to collect feedback, but to truly listen. While we understand that not every outcome will meet every individual preference, our goal is to arrive at a plan that best serves the long-term needs of our students, families, and Scituate community. In essence, our goal is, and always, to do the very best we can for all stakeholders, recognizing that no plan will make everyone happy. When we see that there are ways to make improvements that align with our priorities and stand to positively impact many people, we must always seek to do so whenever possible. The school committee has directed Crocker GIS to craft an option 3 based on feedback from the community. This new version will be made available on the Scituate redistricting website and shared via email as soon as it is ready. There will also be an opportunity to discuss it and ask questions on Monday, April 6th at 6 p.m. in the Gates Learning Common. A 3rd survey will open afterwards to gather feedback on this new option, and we anticipate that the consultant will make a final draft recommendation at our meeting on April 27th. We anticipate voting as a committee to finalize the plan on May 18th. Thank you. Okay. And secondary to that, a quick new school naming update. Just the first half. In addition to the 2nd survey on redistricting, our new school naming public opinion survey closed on March 9th. In terms of the procedural component of that naming of the new school, we would like to share the following. Due to some school committee member travel, we will no longer be voting on a name on March 30th, and instead we'll push that vote to April 27th. And tonight we'll discuss the process we have followed thus far, share survey results, and allow school committee members to discuss the finalist names together for the first time. So we will not be voting any of that tonight. We will hold off, and we're going to, again, go slow with that process too. We would like to now take public comment. We're going to follow our policy for public comment. Please try to stay to 3 minutes, assuming that we have multiple people that would like to speak tonight. I always like to invite our students to speak first. If any students are present and would like to come to the microphone, you can state your name and your school, or adults' name and school affiliation. If anyone would like to come up, Mr. Lynch is here to assist. Yes.
Hi, my name is Ava Schilberg. I'm a senior at Scituate High School, and I went to Cushing for part of elementary school. I made really great memories at the school, and I met friends that I've kept throughout my entire education. Although I was initially sad to hear that Cushing was being taken down, I'm really excited for the possibilities a new building has, especially with the name. Throughout my entire education in Scituate, I've been influenced by so many amazing women that have inspired me to pursue my interests and continually believe that I have the potential to succeed. It's with these women in mind that I'm here, speaking on behalf of the name Irwin Elementary after Inez Haynes Irwin. Inez Haynes Irwin was a pioneer of young women going to college and getting involved in civics, whether it be locally or on the national level. She contributed to nationwide initiatives alongside the National Women's Party and with her organization, the College Equal Suffrage League. And even here, in Scituate, she was fostering a community based on encouraging the voices of those who are often silenced. In her books, especially the Madia books, she used Scituate as the setting for stories that uplifted children and advocated for friendship, empathy, and independence. And then my mom, sitting over there, she got me 2 copies of Inez Haynes Irwin's books. And something I thought was just really special about them is that both of them have a map of Scituate, which I thought was really cool. But then they also both have inscriptions between young girls as like gift messages. The first one reads, "To Mary, from your friend Lori, July 29th, 1954. That's that one. And then this one reads, "Happy birthday to Eileen on her 9th birthday, April 25th, 1944, which is the day after mine, from Pammy." And I just thought that those were so special because I think the fact that they're both kind of gift inscriptions of friendship says so much about what Inez Haynes Irwin's writing meant, and kind of the culture that she was building and the friendships that she kind of facilitated between young children. I thought this was really cool. But to me, Inez Haynes Irwin is so admirable because she has such a clear connection to this town and its history of leaders in education. Although some people might not immediately recognize her name, they know and live her impact every day. When I get to go to school or when I get involved with civic activities, I'm living the legacy of not only Inez Haynes Irwin, but also every woman who has dedicated their lives to making change. In a few weeks, I'll be going to Advocacy Day at the State House for the 3rd year in a row. There, I will advocate alongside the Massachusetts chapter of the National Organization for Women for the I Am Bill, which would provide free menstrual products in public facilities such as homeless shelters or schools in Massachusetts. I was able to watch this bill pass unanimously in the Senate in October, and I can confidently say that I would not have been able to have done that or had a place in that room without the work of Inez Haynes Irwin. I feel deeply inspired by Irwin in the sense that she believed in any woman's ability to make change through getting an education. I see her values and her impact every day when I sit in Miss Willinger's AP Government class or learn about rhetorical analysis with Miss Hall. I see how women have been at the forefront of this town's education for decades, and I see an amazing opportunity now to show thanks. As I take trips to the Capitol, lobby with legislators, or open my college decision letters, I think of all the women who have helped me get to this point. I think of every woman who taught me in elementary school who built the foundation of my knowledge. I think of my mother, who has shown unwavering enthusiasm and support for the name Irwin Elementary, and I think of Inez Haynes Irwin, who lived in this town and did what she did so that I could be speaking here today. I don't think I can say thank you to any of these women enough, and I am endlessly grateful for the work that they've done, especially Irwin and her contributions to the community we have in Scituate. I truly believe there is a need to commemorate the women who have made education in this town what it is, yet even without naming a building or street after her, Inez Haynes Irwin's legacy will always be her. Her work and her life will always be reflected in the women and girls in Scituate who harness the opportunities they have and use their education to continue making change. I'm extremely excited that the school committee has shown so much interest in Inez Haynes Irwin, and I truly hope they continue to consider Irwin Elementary as a potential name for the new school. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Naomi Sommer. I just wanted to thank the school board for letting me speak tonight.
Can you speak louder, please? We can't hear anything.
I'm a junior at Scituate High School, and I'm the student who proposed the name Venus Manning for the new elementary school. First and foremost, I would like to start off by saying how grateful I am for this opportunity, working with other students, like Ava. The Historical Society and teachers has been such an eye-opening experience, and I am so glad that I not only get to learn more about our town, but help others learn more as well. In AP Lang, we recently learned how impactful speech can be compared to just a paragraph. Yes, word choice is so incredibly important in any piece of writing, but it's how you say it and the tone you use that says so much more than the email ever could. Venus Manning was born into slavery in 1777 and became one of the richest single women in Scituate at the time of her death. Despite being taxed at a higher rate due to her skin color, she was financially literate, a skill only few people had. Manning made countless donations to the Baptist Missionary Society as well as the Massachusetts Anti-Slavery Society, both of which she was a member of. After her death, she left $400, which is equivalent to $15,000 today, in her will to the Methodist Society of South Scituate and Boston's Baldwin Place Baptist Church to promote the cause of abolition of slavery in these United States. Because Manning was able to read, write, and was financially literate, she set the stage for other African American women hoping to fulfill the same things. She showed people that it's possible to achieve the seemingly impossible, especially during a time when this was abnormal. When Judge Cushing ruled slavery unconstitutional in the 1783 Quock Walker case, he allowed Manning and other slaves in Massachusetts to pursue their dreams and passions. Manning saw this opportunity and used it to fight for the rights of slaves all across America, not only proclaiming herself as an abolitionist, but proving herself to be one through her actions and her legacy. Even if just one person walks out of here today knowing a little bit more about our town's history and who Venus Manning was, I will be so proud that I am able to continue her legacy and teach others her message. As I end my remark, let's remember the power of our words. Just as Venus Manning's actions spoke volumes, our words and Facebook comments should too. Thank you.
Have a virtual hand raise, and then we'll go to someone else in person. Ms. Withrow, you can unmute. You are unmuted.
Hi, good evening. Laurie Withrow, 62 Ann Vinyl Road, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. I want to address the process used to generate the names for the new elementary school. My concern is not about any specific name. It is about whether the process truly reflected the community it is meant to represent. At the most important stage, deciding which names would even be considered, residents were not invited to submit suggestions. Instead, the initial ideas came from a task force and a limited group of students from certain high school history classes only. That meant most residents, most parents, and even most students had no opportunity to participate in shaping the options from the start. By the time the broader community was asked for feedback, the list had already been narrowed to just a few choices. At that point, the public was not helping shape the process. It was simply reacting to decisions that had already been made. The lack of published agendas and minutes makes community members question transparency of how decisions were made and by whom. Whether there was deliberation done behind the scenes and not an open meeting as required by law. A new elementary school will represent this town for generations. Decisions of that importance should begin with the widest possible participation. Because a school name is not just a label, it is part of our shared identity as a community. When participation is limited at the beginning, it can leave people feeling that the outcome was predetermined, whether that was the intention or not. That is why transparency and broad inclusion matter so much in decisions like this. My hope is that in the future, when the town faces decisions of this magnitude, the process begins with the entire community. Scituate is strongest when its residents feel they are part of the decision, not just observers of it. Thank you for your time, and as you know, I do appreciate all you do for Scituate. And one last thing, as a first row person who's been watching the building of the building right in my backyard, I just wanted to give a shout out to the builders who have been unbelievably hardworking at 7 a.m. and when you say it's snow and wind and rain and all the things in the blizzard, they were there at 7 a.m. no matter what. So I just want to give a shout out to all of you who had a part in choosing this corporation that is doing the work, because they are unbelievable work ethic. So thank you so much.
All right. Someone else in person.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Joseph Gibbons, 223 Gannon Road. I'm a graduate of Scituate High School. I went all through Scituate schools. I went to Cushing. My 3 daughters graduated from Hatherley School and had a very good experience. I have to say, I did not want to come up here to have to get involved in this, but when I saw the committee that was formed and the lack of diversity on that committee, I was horrified. I grew up in this town. My brother went to school here. I went to school here. My dad was a principal at the middle school for 25 years. And I have to say that the committee lacked diversity. I didn't see veterans on that committee. I didn't see too many seniors on that committee. I didn't see retired educators on that committee. I don't even know if there was a graduate of Scituate High School on that committee. And we had a committee that was dominated by students and teachers. And we all know, you're in education. Teachers come and go. Look at the superintendents and the high school principals. They come and go left and right. I can't keep track, and I've lived in this town my whole life. And education was right in front of me because of my dad. And teachers, for the most part, most of them stay a long time, but the superintendents and the high school principals tend to leave. But the elementary principals and the middle school principals seem to stay longer. As evidence, we still have Ryan here in a different role. But I think the committee I echo what Laurie said. If you don't have a diverse committee and the process to come up with the 3 names, if you're going to have 3 names, and you're omitting people who were leaders in this community, the Sam Tildens, who was the director of guidance here, whose family founded this town, Guido Risi, who was the first principal at Hatherley School, and I don't even think he was considered to be on the list. We had a wonderful opportunity in doing this, to honor prior educators. And we're one of the few towns in Massachusetts that don't have a school named after an educator. Cohasset has Joseph Osgood. Rockland has the John Rogers School. It's all over the place. And we don't have a school named after a former educator. I think that's poor. Jenkins was the family. The family owned that land, and they donated it to the town. And I think if we had people on the committee that, please don't roll your eyes at me, Nicole. I'm a taxpayer. I've lived in this town my whole life. And I don't appreciate that. We had people, Jed Fitzgerald, that taught the history of Scituate at Scituate High School, who was a graduate of Scituate High School. My father wrote his letter of recommendation to Harvard University, and he taught the history of Scituate here. These are people, their names should have at least come up in this process, and they did not. Lastly, I don't want to take up any else's time, but I think this committee needs to be reformed, and we need to cast a much wider net at the beginning, okay, and not bring the public in at the end, at the 11th hour, when 3 choices have already been made. And I'm going to back up what Laurie Withrow said. I'm very disappointed in the process of this committee.
Thank you.
Good evening. I am going to switch gears for a moment from the renaming and talk about something a little different. Good evening, Chair and members of the school committee. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Crystal Hoffman. I am for 205 Country Way. I am a parent of a
We're asking just.
Oh,
Is it
you
microphone?
can't hear me?
Closer to the microphone.
Just pull the mic.
Is this better?
There you
go.
Okay.
hi, I'm Crystal Hoffman, and I am a parent of a current third grader at Cushing School. And I also have an older and a younger student in the district. I would like to say in regards to the new elementary school and upcoming redistricting, I'm here to respectfully ask that the committee consider keeping together the current third grade cohort through their fifth grade year in the 2027-2028 school year. During discussions about the new school project, the previous superintendent indicated on multiple occasions, indicated that the students who would be entering fifth grade during the transition would likely be grandfathered in so that their cohort could remain together. For many families, that understanding mattered. In fact, for some of us, that indication helped inform and influence our support for the new school project. There is also a precedent for providing families with flexibility during a redistricting transition. When Jenkins was opened close to 20 years ago, redistricted fifth grade families were given an option to either remain with their class at their current school or attend Jenkins. We would simply ask that families today would be given a similar option. Finally, fifth grade is already a year of preparation for the transition to middle school. Separating a cohort of students who have spent years learning and growing together to divide them amongst 3 schools just 1 year before that transition can create unnecessary social and emotional disruption during what is already such a critical stage of their development. I understand that these decisions involve many logistical considerations, and I appreciate the thoughtful work that goes into that. I respectfully ask that you consider both the expectations that were communicated to families and the well-being of the students affected. Thank you for your time and continued commitment to our students and community.
Madam Chair, if I may make a comment on the fifth grade class of 2035.
Yeah.
Because this has come up a couple of times. And I actually received some letters from some current third graders who will be in fifth grade in 2 years. And I've given a lot of thought to the class of 2035 and what might be done with the understanding that it's very complicated. And what I'd like to do, to be perfectly honest, is separate those considerations from the redistricting. The redistricting decision is a 20-30 year decision. Those decisions about how we organize the town, how we move students around to the 3 buildings are decisions that are going to have impacts for the next 20-30 years. I recognize that, and I think it's independent of what we might be able to do with the class of 2035, where the students will be in 5th grade. So what I would recommend is the committee make its decision on May 18th, as you indicated earlier, for the redistricting process, and then I'll hold a separate meeting with the class of 2035 parents in late May or June. Once I have the list, I'll know exactly who's moving where, I'll know exactly what students are impacted. We can do all of our data analysis right down to the student level. And I'll be able to know at that point what we might be able to consider. Not making any promises, but I'm willing to consider what might be able to be done, listening to all the feedback. So I just think separating the 2 issues helps because they're very different. You know, issues with the 5th grade is very different than a long-term redistricting plan. And I recognize the sensitivity around both. So if that helps.
Hi there. Excuse me. My name is Suzanne Brooks. I want to thank the school committee, interim superintendent Rob, assistant superintendent Lynch. I'm Suzanne Brooks. As I said, I'm mom to a current 3rd grader, a 1st grader, and a nursery school age son who's really looking forward to go to Scituate Public Schools. He tries to get on the bus from like age 1.5, so he's excited. So thank you for reading and responding to all of our emails. I know that you have had a lot to sort through since that last meeting, and I really do appreciate it. And I want to thank you also, Dr. Rob, for what you just said about the 5th grade class. I think that is wonderful to hear, and it is one of the main reasons that I'm here today, although it is not the only reason that I'm here today. I'm here to speak about the maps a little bit. And I'm pretty disappointed in the current maps and the redistricting options as they stand. While Mr. Cropper has spent time in our town during the redistricting process, he doesn't live here. He doesn't understand the nuances of our neighborhoods, our natural boundary lines within the town, and he also doesn't understand which streets are dangerous. Of course, he understands the big ones, but there are a lot of other side streets that are incredibly dangerous, and you wouldn't know that unless you lived here. We as parents know this. A few examples are splitting up First Parish Road, one side or the other, sending our kids down Beaver Dam all the way from the West End to Hatherley School, left on Tilden, and then moving pockets of Jenkins students specifically off of 3A. I'm really glad to hear that there's going to be a third option that he's going to be presenting, so that gives me a lot of hope. I campaigned, I held signs, donated a lot of money for this new consolidated Cushing-Hatherley school. I voted for a new school with Cushing and Hatherley students. Cushing's a wonderful place with wonderful educators, and it's very sad to see our community getting split into three. I ask again that you find a way to keep this current third grade class together. Please continue to work to make this right, to keep your promises on the new school as it was sold to so many of us. And I look forward to seeing the changes that you make reflecting feedback from all of our community. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Miss O'Reilly. I have two children graduated from Scituate Public School, and I was the Hadley school nurse for 11 years. I'm here tonight about the renaming of the school. To follow up on what Laurie had said, some of it deals with the transparency. So I'm here tonight as a member of the community with a few questions about the survey. First, no member other than the school district received the survey. I had found out about it from other people. I then went up to the town hall to ask them if it would be being sent out to the community, and they knew nothing about it. That was on the 5th. The survey ended on the 9th. I then went and looked back and looked at the school committee meetings and the weekly updates to see if there were any information about it that I had missed. There was one mention of the task force on September the 2nd, and on March the 9th, the survey was mentioned. That was the night it closed. There was nothing else that the public could have seen, other than if you were in the schools. I had voted for the Hadley School extension, but on the actual ballot, it calls the school the Cushing Hadley Elementary School. That's also what I thought I was voting for. In 2016, when Gates was being opened, they had proposed to change the name of Gates. Laurie Gates wrote an open letter to the community at that time, asking us to please write to school committee and Superintendent McCarthy. The name was then kept because she also noted Jenkins and Hadley, when rebuilt, kept their names. We were all under the impression that that was what we were voting for, a new school, the Cushing Hadley Elementary. At this time, I'm asking you to listen to the community and your constituents who voted for this, and to please keep the name as the Hadley Cushing Elementary. This is part of Scituate's history. If not, the Hadley name is very important in this town. Judge Cushing's name is very important to the town, but also to the state of Massachusetts. I think that they deserve the respect that they got, and it should stay.
Hi, my name is Lily. I actually just moved to Scituate a few years ago, and I have a 2-year-old now, so he'll be starting school right after the change of everything. I want to start off by saying I know it's an incredibly difficult decision redistricting, and you're never going to have a situation where everyone's happy, and I'm really grateful to hear that you're considering relooking at the 5th grade class, because I know that that's a really difficult time for a lot of kids. There's a lot of changes in terms of like puberty, friend groups, all the things, so asking me to change chairs in one row. Really difficult, and I personally want to leave my parents going through that. But I want to touch more on the redistricting itself. I tried to look at this as objectively as possible, just because that's typically how mine works. And so with that, before the redistricting even came out, I tried to look at the criteria that was put forth. Criteria that was also kind of put forth again tonight: balancing enrollment, keeping students close to home, minimal family impact, minimal student impact, maintaining neighborhoods and bus routes. Obviously, there are certain areas that aren't going to be available to the public, such as bus routes and also maintaining neighborhoods. We don't have the numbers of like who lives in what block, so that's going to make it difficult. That said, looking at 3 of the 5 that were presented, they weren't optimized on. The minimal number of students impacted would be 641. If you remove Cushing and Union or Cushing Heather kids, it would be 0. And it's 666 and 664 in the current proposed plans. So that already off the bat I was a little confused. The capacities in the school, it's pushing one of the schools to 98.5 regardless of the 2 current plans. It looks like the goal is to keep the new school at 95%, but there is an option to keep the schools at 95, 96, and 96. So again, didn't really understand the hitting on that point. And then in terms of just keeping families distance-wise close to the schools, based on feedback I've seen from other families, including like how my family would be impacted, we're actually at now the furthest school for us. So I think when looking at this, I understand it's an incredibly difficult decision, and I understand that there is information that's not necessarily readily available to the public. But given the criteria that was put out there, it doesn't feel like it was actually what was used. So that's kind of my overall confusion and like the timeline of how it was and the minimal ability to ask questions and gain further information and further educate ourselves. And another area that for me is just a little bit hairy is that typically when you have people voting on something, you want to remove any bias. And I think that there's a decent number of people out of the 5 impacted by this. And I think that kind of blurs the line of just honesty. So I guess what I would really advocate for would be a little bit more transparency into how these numbers came to be. What is driving this? Like those were the criteria that was set forth. What's driving the inability to optimize on any of them when there are plans that can optimize on more of them? And trying to kind of understand the analysis behind that, just because currently it's not hitting the criteria and there are ways to hit more of it pretty easily. Thank you.
I can address some of that, just to be clear, and I'm certainly committed to talking to Matt Cropper and getting a little bit more of the detail of the analysis. But the main driving force really was the 20 students in each classroom. That was the top criteria, and we wanted to make sure that we were maximizing 20 or averaging 20 students in all 3 buildings. We didn't want one building to have 23 and another building to have 17. And so a lot of the lines that were drawn really were to make sure that there were 20 in each section in all 3 buildings. So that really was the top criteria. The other thing that made this complicated is we're trying to project out 2 years. And so we used averages. We used averages of the current class sizes, tried to project out 2 years to see. We don't know the incoming kindergarten next year, which is then going to be first grade. We don't know the incoming kindergarten 2 years from now exactly. So we had to use averages to try to make all of that work. So those were the 2 things that from a math perspective helped us out. But I'm certainly, I'll look at it and we'll have a little bit more of information about how that came to be at the April 6th meeting. I think we can include that in there and be a little clearer about how some of the metrics were done. But at the end of the day, it really came down to class sizes of 20. We really felt that optimizing that in all 3 schools was important in this change. Because, part of it is we were sort of facing redistricting anyway. We were getting to a point here where some of the schools had average class sizes of 16, 17, and others were going to go higher. And so this sort of is helping that too. So that's part of what we're dealing with as well.
Thank you. That's helpful. Right. Are you here for you? Comment?
Yes. My name is Deidre Kulovich. I live at Scituate Drive in Scituate. And my husband was a longtime superintendent of schools from 1978 until he retired in 2002. Unfortunately, he's deceased. I'm a little late to the game here, but I was contacted by Joe Gibbons about the name for the new Hatherley Cushing School. And I must admit, I was a little bit floored by the niche, N-I-C-H-E, the niche nature of the 2 or 3 names. And I do not think that it actually comports with the entire town. And I think it just does not have a broad appeal. So I'm wondering whether or not I am able to make some kind of a motion to form a new committee made up of different residents from the categories that Mr. Gibbons mentioned, for example, educators, veterans, seniors, students, teachers, etc., to see if we can't find a name that has a broader appeal to the entire community. Is it too late for this type of motion? I don't know how this, I'm not exactly knowledgeable on the rules of Robert's orders. I have a busy law practice. I'm not actually attuned to the school. My kids went through Scituate Public Schools from the first grade through high school. They did very well. They both have several graduate degrees. So I'm very fond of the Scituate Public Schools, but just a little bit out of the loop this time. So can someone address that, whether it is appropriate to make a motion to form a new committee, whether it's too late to do that? Do we have anybody who is up on the?
I mean, we don't normally take questions during public comment.
Okay,
but we
so how would I go
normally take
about
a
doing
motion
this?
from-
Would I have to submit something official to the committee?
It would be, we wouldn't typically, that would be counteractive to the school committee's
Okay.
policy on naming
Because I understand,
facilities.
when is the decision going to be made as to the name of the new school?
I don't think we set a date for voting or anything like that. We're just beginning the discussion on this.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how does the discussion proceed? Does it proceed through the next?
We're about to talk about it a little bit further in our meeting today.
Okay, very good. Okay,
Just
thank you.
starting.
And I understand that I'm not the only one here who has these concerns.
Absolutely, we're happy that you're here to discuss.
Okay,
This is the input, this is the public input piece. This is the feedback, the surveys, this is us gathering. We didn't want to just name a building, we didn't want to just send a letter as saying, your kid's going to this school now. We want input, we want to
good.
be
Okay, so you're getting input today.
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
we appreciate everyone being here.
Okay.
Okay, I think we're gonna wrap, you want to be our last public commenter. We have a long agenda.
Yeah, Randy Scott, 25 Bossy Lane, parent of a current Cushing third grader. I guess there's a couple bullet point items. One, I would implore the committee to make sure the communication on the next meeting is as vast and as broad as possible. I think we were somewhat surprised at how few people impacted by the redistricting were aware that they were going to be impacted by the redistricting. Even the meeting that we had a couple of weeks ago, not that many people attended because they didn't know it was impacting them. Jenkins and Wampatuck had very little idea that this was impacting them. So we have the electrical signs on the street for the shuttles for the Heritage Days. We had the signs in the yard for taxes are due, all of that. I would just implore any possible way to reach out to the community and make sure as many people know as possible. I would implore you all to do that. I know Dr. Robb had addressed, my wife had reached out about minutes for the planning committee. It seems like those have not been posted despite several meetings. I think that's another way that the community would have been more informed about what's going on with this redistricting, but we could not find those anywhere. I know Dr. Robb, you have addressed that and I appreciate your comments on that, but again, just more communication to the town because I do feel there's a big number of people that don't even know they're being impacted by this. Last thing I'll just say real quick, I wasn't even planning on talking about this. I just want to highlight with the naming thing, I wasn't really invested in the naming. I do want to point out that the students who contributed to that did a great job. And whatever criticism that got to that point, sure. But once there, I think the students did a good job. They should be commended for their efforts. Wherever we go from here, however we got there, doesn't matter. They were assigned a task, and I think they did a good job. And for all the negative comments that have been received today, I think at least they should be acknowledged for the work they did too. So, thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Robb, do you want to clarify that?
Absolutely, I can address some of the concerns. So I did receive the email and I have the request for the public records. So I will be responding to that, certainly. We received that
We have
Friday and
minutes
I'll,
for those meetings. We just need time.
I'm just pulling together the emails that were requested. So I have some time for that public records request. But I will say in general, the idea of internal planning team is just that. So it's an opportunity to sit down with the consultant, have some conversations in anticipation of a public meeting. So we knew all along that we were preparing for a public meeting that we would put out there in a public meeting and then look for options. And then just like tonight, based on the feedback, the request now, for a third option. We're gonna bring that back, we'll have a meeting, we'll talk to him about that. And then he's gonna come up with other options for us. So, but I am going to respond to the public records request. I'm just trying to follow it.
I just know everyone's gonna stick around for Megan Gregory's humanities curriculum update. We are in fact a public school, and the very main focus, in addition to building a new school and making sure all children are happy and supported and social emotionally sound, is that we educate our students and so that they leave Scituate with the best opportunities they can get. That's the main thing that we do. All this other stuff, we will work it out together. We promise you, we're all on the same team at the end of the day, no matter what the school is named, what goes on inside the buildings, but the greatest teachers in Massachusetts that we have here, that's what our main focus is. We will get this done. All right, so speaking of, we have an awesome student here for the high school who's been patient, who's gonna share our student report.
So definitely switching gears now, but I think we can congratulate our hockey teams here at the high school. Both boys and girls made it to the Elite Eight, which is an awesome update and definitely a progression for both teams, which is awesome and exciting to see. Along with this, the cheer team placed second in their regional competition, which once again is just a great representation of Scituate as a whole in the sports department.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone had the chance to make it to the high school play, but they played Pippin on March 6th, 7th, and 8th. It was a really great performance, and I'm glad I was able to go. So this was a really great show.
Also, the high school and Gates ran an all chorus night this past Wednesday on the 11th, which was exciting.
Last week, we had a number of students take the ASVAB, which stands for the Armed Services Vocational Assessment Battery Assessment, which is sponsored by the Department of Defense. When students receive their results, they'll be able to explore careers in the context of their skills and interests, understand all of their options, and to plan for the path of their choice, which is kind of another cool thing students are able to do.
Also, the robotics team competed in Reading this past weekend, and they just keep progressing with their projects, which is exciting to see and hear from our peers, which I feel like we get a lot of in class, like hearing them talk about it, which is a new perspective, which is exciting. Along with this, DECA States happened this past weekend, which was exciting for all those who participated. I know we had a few that qualified for that weekend.
The Scituate Town scholarship applications are available to graduating seniors. The information is on the SHS website, and the deadline was extended to March 27th at 3 p.m. To accommodate for the recent storm. And then school counselors have also been meeting with current juniors to help with their post-secondary plans, mostly using SCORE and getting everyone set up with that. That's it from us.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. All right, so now we're gonna do our new school naming discussion. You, Carrie, will you lead our discussion?
Okay. You can go to the next one. Just media, yep. So I've been asked by Nicole and Maria to take us through the data from the survey. As Nicole has mentioned, this is a discussion tonight. We're not making a decision. I think you said May. Did you say May? May. So we're still, again, taking input. I want to echo what Mr. Scott said. I'm so proud to be a part of this community that has amazing students, like the two that we heard from tonight. It's very heartening. I spent most of my weekend in this data, and as you'll see, I want to warn the students. There are some hard comments to read, and so it made me feel really good to hear both of you speak. So I'm very grateful that you came tonight and took time out of your busy schedules. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to remind everybody of the naming process. I know, Maria, you took us through it, I think at our last meeting. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Then I'm going to talk really briefly about the goals and caveats of this survey. Then just a real brief on the characteristics, and then I'm going to quickly take you through the quantitative results, and then we're going to spend most of our time in the qualitative results. And the way I've organized the data is comments specifically by the name, and then some themes that emerged in my analysis, and then some other themes that I hadn't anticipated that I thought were important to share for context. And then we'll go into a committee discussion. So committee, if you don't mind, I'd love to just go through the presentation, then we can discuss. Great. All right. Maria, do you want to do this slide?
Sure.
Great.
Yep. And please jump in if I miss something or misstate something. So, my recollection, I was thinking about this, is actually way back early in the process, we decided to name a task force in the spring of 2025, so last spring. And part of the reason we did that was because we knew that we would have students coming from different schools entering this new building. And we felt like it was an opportunity to have a new name and a new school identity. So we knew that there would be students coming from potentially different buildings. And, the existing elementary schools that we have, I know at Hatherley it's the Hornets and at Cushing it's the Cats. And those identities are great, but we knew there would be some mixing and melding, and that this would be an opportunity to kind of come up with something new. So that was the original thinking behind naming a task force last spring. So that was the initial naming task force that convened over the summer. I believe in that process, we had directed Superintendent Burkhead to lead that. He asked the two principals at Cushing and Hatherley to find educators, students, and community members and family members to join that task force. They met over the summer, so last summer, and they did surface some names. We wanted to really, as a committee, bring in student voice. That was really important to us as an education committee. That should not come as a surprise that we felt like students should have a large part in this. And so we asked the social studies department here at the high school to create an extra credit assignment that was given in social studies classes throughout the high school. There were 80 entries. Some of them were duplicates, but that was pretty impressive. And from that, a staff panel reviewed those and reduced them to 15 options. There was a second panel that came together that was educators, some of us, some administrators, and reduced those down to 5. Those 5 were, we asked the students to do additional research. The Historical Society added to that research and fact-checked for us to make sure that it was very sound and solid. We brought those 5 back to the task force, who narrowed down to 3 that they wanted to bring forward to the full committee, and also to gather public feedback via the survey. So that brings us to where we are today. 3 finalists being Inez Irwin, Venus Manning, and Scituate. The survey was open from March 3rd through March 9th. It was sent out via email, Parent Square, and the town email system. And so tonight's our opportunity as a group to look at that survey data, and also just for the first time for the 5 of us to have any sort of actual conversation about things. So that's where we are in our process.
Thanks, Maria. So as Maria said, the goal of the survey was continued transparency in the naming process, which meant inviting voices and perspectives to participate, highlight preferences, opinions, and then also to discuss the merits of those different opinions and perspectives. We wanted to make it clear that this was not a vote. This was not an opportunity and it's not an opportunity to select someone outside of the names that were already sort of gone through the process. I also want to tell you that this is not a scientific instrument, right? This is not, these are not results that I would submit to a journal. I am a professor and would not submit this to a journal. This is an opportunity to measure the pulse of the community, or what's sometimes called vocal sentiment. Think of it as a snapshot, right? There aren't validity and reliability metrics attached to this survey. I was talking to a member of the select board who said none of the town surveys have that. They're just that, snapshots of what's going on. The strength of the survey, having said all that, is we did have strong participation. As you'll see, there were 2,003 respondents or responses and diverse perspectives from town residents, students, alums, parents, and others. Cool. Yep. Again, I said 2,003 respondents or responses, and you can see the percentages. I will tell you two things about the percentages. They're not going to add up to 100% because if you took the survey and you remember, you were able to select multiple identities, right? The other thing, actually, that Ryan Lynch and I were talking about before is you'll notice Scituate resident, you would have expected that number to be higher, right? Because students are also residents. My sense is that often folks picked the identity that sort of made sense around school. So that's why it's a bit lower. All right, so let's go ahead and get into the quantitative results. I'll tell you, looking at the quantitative results, it seems pretty clear, but there's a complexity here, right? You can scroll just a little bit. There you go. So keep in mind, these are two Likert scales. The one on the left is 1 not appealing, 5 being very appealing. The one on the right is not at all representative and very much. And you can see from this first one, there is strong sentiment in the town around Inez Haynes Irwin not being appealing and not representing Scituate. Okay, if you look at the bar graph. Want to go to the next one, Nicole? The same is essentially true for Miss Venus Manning. Again, 1 not appealing to very appealing, 1 not at all representative to very much. And you can see the sort of shape of that bar graph is evidence of how people felt about both of these women in terms of being named. Keep going. And then if we look at Scituate, the opposite, right? You can see that the ones on both of those graphs are low. So in terms of appealing and representative, many people in town reported that they felt like this name is appealing, and very much represents Scituate. So if we stopped here, it would seem pretty evident what the town, the students, what the committee would want. But you'll see in a minute in the qualitative data that it gets much more complicated. So if you could go ahead. And as I said, I organized it first by each person. So I'd love to give folks a chance to read it. I can highlight a few. So what I tried to do is organize for each name comments that represented support, comments that represented concern, and then there seemed to be a lot around historical critique or historic critique, so I included that. So some examples of support for Ms. Irwin: amazing woman, I think students would be inspired to learn her story. The idea of a local activist and local author appealed to many people. In Scituate, we don't have a single school named after a woman. It would be a source of pride. To wonderful representation, defying the odds, a great example of resilience, and the same example of a value of education in shaping a person's life. Concerns, there were lots of concerns across the board around the length of the name. So full name is too long. I'd suggest condensing. Too long and difficult. One of the students said, I'm in high school and I can't figure out how to say that. How will an 8-year-old? And again, too complicated. So there were lots of suggestions about how to shorten the elementary school name. In terms of historic critique, there were some questions, right? Wonderful story, but not a name that any resident associates with town. Seems like a stretch. She was a summer resident, although she did end up living here later in life after her husband died. So, you could argue that point. Her literary career and suffrage work all happened before she lived in Scituate was a comment. And someone said, never heard of this person. In terms of Venus Manning, again, support, concerns, and historical critique. The meaningfulness of recognizing an African American, loving the idea of seeing an African American female being named for a school, very important and valuable in terms of contribution historically. She was a resident, she paid taxes. Interesting story, Manning Elementary sounds good. Concerns, again, I would like this option better if it was just Manning Elementary. Again, with the length of the name was some struggle. This will be shortened to Manning. Someone said it kind of sounds like a planet, I guess for Venus. Again, someone said never heard of this person. The main critique on Miss Venus Manning is a lot of people said, I only put a few here, is that she's really a Norwell person. She belongs to Norwell. Norwell claims her. The fact that she was born in a part of Scituate that is now Norwell and buried in Norwell. So again, that was the historic critique. Scituate, folks said best of the three, short and simple. Again, with the length of the name, represents our town better and is one word. One word is better than longer names for children. It nicely aligns with Wampatuck. Concerns. People had concerns about the idea that, I guess because we have the Scituate Tavern, there were worries about, will it be known for being a bar? Someone said, can I get a burger and fries at this school? Someone also said, and I'm going to try to say it, Scituate and Scituate is a mouthful when you're referring to the elementary school. So again, historic critique, amazing nod to our history, love the tribute from using original native names. The name honors our shared history while embracing our future. So you can see, again, quantitative data seemed clear, and then there's some questions when you get into the qualitative data. Go ahead, Nicole, can slide through so these were the themes that emerged. Just looking at the data a little bit differently, not organized by name, but theme. So a dominant recurring theme is the need for that name to be simple, short, and easy for young children. That's what I'm calling the practicality of the name, right? Again, these direct quotes. Call it Manning Elementary, this idea that the Irwin would be too long, a bit of a mouthful. Scituate is the best of the three. Yeah, so I know, again, I thought that was interesting, known first as a bar or a grill. So practicality of the name was a theme that emerged. You wanna scroll up, Nicole? The next one, again, was this lots of questions about historical relevance. People who responded to the survey were really vetting meticulously the social and geographic connections to the town, which you would expect. This idea of a Norwell conflict, right? That Venus Manning spent some time there, she lived there, she's buried there. That was a question. Summer residency became a question. Again, I think these are things we could talk about further, and I hope the committee will weigh in on these. And again, I tried to find some direct quotes that sort of supported this theme, right? Wonderful story, not a name residents associate with. South Scituate is Norwell. We need to represent women more. Naming the new school after one of these ladies feels an empowering step. The recognition of an African American is meaningful. And then there was two additional themes. As we've heard tonight from folks who have spoken, there were concerns about the process being manipulated, that there was a lack of transparency or social engineering. And you can see lots of quotes. I'm not going to read them all, but they were similar to things like, it feels pretty rich to be asking the town to honor the clandestine committee while you have shown no honor or respect to the community perspective. It's infantilizing to provide adults the illusion of choice. We see what you're doing. Zero transparency. Who was asked to be on the initial committee that narrowed the choices down seems controlling and biased. I'm disappointed with these three. Scituate is the only palatable one, but I don't understand the need to erase history. So again, you can see there was some questions and upset about the process. The other theme that emerged that I maybe hadn't anticipated was there were several people that asked for other names, so preferences for other names. If they asked if the school to be named after a person, many respondents suggested more locally famous or relatable figures. The Bates sisters came up many times, Mr. Ball and other lifelong contributors, Betty Crowley Elementary School, she impacted people in town. There was also unprompted feedback, again, as we've talked about tonight already, of somehow keeping Hatherley Cushing, call it Hatherley, Cushing Hatherley. There were all sorts of iterations or permutations of that combination. The last theme that emerged, I didn't have a good name for it. You can go to the next slide, Nicole. I called it DEI agenda because it felt like the cleanest way. And before you go to that slide, Nicole, I do want to tell people again that there's some pretty awful things in these slides. And I debated all weekend about whether or not to include them because they are awful, but I do think that we need to understand how some people feel in this town, and I think it provides context. If we're gonna have a fully transparent discussion, we need to also understand all of the perspectives that are out there, whether we agree or not. I'm not gonna read them all, but you can scroll, Nicole, there's 2 slides worth. This seems like a liberal attempt to rewrite history. Don't erase history. Why are you wiping out previously Scituate history? Shame on you for pushing woke political BS. Seems like you just want to fit the DEI agenda. Why be controversial? Let's go for a neutral name instead of trying to fit an agenda. Double yuck. And then it goes on to the last slide, Nicole. I don't see an African American population here. I think this would be better in an intercity school. Given that Scituate is not racially diverse at all, naming the school after an African American woman who we know very little about just feels condescending or patronizing. It represents a woman only, and to mention our town is still 90%, I believe, Caucasian, so women of color do not currently reflect our town. It's only about women pushing males aside, which is unfair. I feel it doesn't represent Scituate at all.
That's disgusting.
Again, I share this to be fully transparent, and I'm sorry for folks who are seeing this that it is hurtful. I just thought I really did weigh the value of it. So that's all. That's the end of it. And so I'd love to.
That hurts your heart.
I'd love to open up the discussion. Yeah, I'm trying to stay objective, and I will share, but as I want to listen to my colleagues, I had a hard weekend. It was hard to read those comments. It was upsetting and surprising and just hard. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you for putting that together.
Yeah.
Committee. Appreciate the work that you did there.
I was just gonna add that from like a student perspective, I understand the town of Scituate history is very like selective on what we learn about, and a lot of the names that typically come up are usually male. And I think although there's a lot of influential women in history, I think having these options as names and people being upset that we don't know them, this is why. And I think like putting them out there as names is like super important, and understanding the Scituate is mostly a white community. There are like the Metco kids who come here, and being able to represent them in any sort of way is not just trying to fit some sort of agenda. I think that's wicked important to understand, and I think it would represent something far more than just the white people in Scituate who want it to be a male name. I don't think that's trying to fit any sort of agenda. I think it's just a quality that we need to understand.
I would add to Anna's comment that we have a very large Cape Verdean community too.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
Yeah, Kara, thanks for putting that together. I looked at everything, but I didn't summarize it quite like you, so I appreciate that. To think that there was an agenda in naming the school is just ludicrous. We, as a community, decided we were going to build a new school, and we all knew there was going to be a new name coming out with it. And I believe the committee formed a subcommittee to figure out how we can best do it. You can't take everyone's vote on everything that we do. There was zero agenda in this. We tried to include as many people as we could, reasonably possible, and to get students involved. So the fact that people think there's an agenda is absolutely, again, ludicrous. I guess to this, I haven't necessarily been involved in it because we rely on experts and our subcommittees to do their work. So I don't know how people can think that. We don't necessarily care what the name is. We're going to make what we think is appropriate or based upon the research and all the information that we get done by the subcommittee. So I take a little bit of offense at that.
Take a lot
of offense, actually.
Yeah, I do too, because I have to say, the first time I heard about some of the names was Maria and I were having office hours for the town, and you shared some of the preliminary, and I was like, oh, And so I had to start reading and looking them up. Like I, like you, found out about them.
Yeah.
So it's not like I wasn't involved with this process.
No, and we did have, I
all the way
think
through.
in the summer, we did have that list of 5 names that the first subcommittee came up with. And I was hoping that there may be some more to choose from, and that's when the new subcommittee was, or the additional subcommittee was created, and then these results came up. So there was zero agenda. It's a school name. We're trying to do what's right. I appreciate the students coming up and supporting that. I think you guys spoke about them tremendously. I'd love to see people that don't like those names to be so eloquent in explaining why they want someone else. I'm not sure what my choice is at this moment, but that's besides the point. I'm really impressed with the students that came up and Anna for speaking, but I think it is very true. And I never thought of it from that perspective. We don't know about the important women in Scituate because we don't have things named after them.
I think we just started a women's history class at Scituate, which I'm currently taking, and I think it's very important to our town and like the public schools. So I think continuing on with this progressive movement, with learning more about women as they've kind of been suppressed throughout history, and this isn't following the woke liberal agenda or anything, just what I believe. So.
I mean, I think when we think about naming a school, I've tried to do, again, I was deep in the weeds this weekend and trying to think about what are the goals when you name, right? And so things that came up, and we've talked about it tonight, connection to the community. Does the person respect our school values? Will this person's name age well over time? Will the kids who go to these schools be proud? And I think in both of the beautiful narratives or essays that our students shared tonight, the two women, I mean, Scituate isn't a person, but the two women seem to embody a lot of what we care about in Scituate. If you go to our website, 5 core values: building relationships as foundation for safe and supportive community, success for students, active engagement and learning, growth mindset, excellence, resilience, perseverance, integrity, mutual trust, collaboration, and respect. Again, I haven't made my decision either, but when I think of the two women that both of these students so eloquently described, I feel like, they were good possible choices. I'm not saying I'm choosing them, but they are good possible choices for a name of a school if we're following the core values of what we've put together over the last several years. So I'm trying to move away from feeling upset about the hurt and trying to focus on like what is important about a name. And so I just wanted to bring that back so we can talk about that too.
And the names were vetted by the Historical Society, who would have input on these names, which I think a lot of people aren't done. They don't realize how much input and what an impact the Historical Society had on it too.
Yeah, I guess one other thing I'll just add on a slightly lighter note is I didn't anticipate the confusion over the length of the name. Gates Middle School is Lester J. Gates. It's right on the side of the school. It's right as you drive up. It's Lester J. Gates, but we all call it Gates. No one goes around town saying Lester J. Gates. And I think if we did, it would be a mouthful. And so to me, it seems really obvious that whatever name is chosen gets naturally shortened by the community. Yeah. I wasn't thinking about that as a choice we would make as a committee. I would think typically most schools are named for the person's name, and then the community takes the decision of what to call it from there, and it becomes called that thing. So I was really surprised to see how much confusion there was about that. But I think we wouldn't go around calling this school by the full of any of those people's names. We're not going to be calling it Enos Manning Elementary. We're not going to be calling it Enos Haynes Irwin Elementary. It will naturally be shortened, I assume, to Irwin or Manning. And so I think that is just apparently something that we need to make a point of because those were such clear themes. I noticed in the survey data a lot of people saying, I love this woman and this name, but it's too long. I'm giving it a 1. Yeah. And so I think that was just really something people couldn't get over. Yeah. And I saw that again and again in the survey, and I was like, okay. So that's another factor when we think about the way that the data came out. that I thought was just unanticipated to me. I thought that was a known naming convention, but here we are.
I think too, something that I learned is, I mean, even when we think about Cushing and Hatherley, I think at one point, even years ago, we're talking about Cushing Hatherley schools, Cushing Hatherley communities. Keeping it Hatherley, to me as a mom of 4 Cushing students, like right off the gate is totally disrespectful to Cushing and Cushing families. That's just not going to fly. But why would we ever name the Hatherley school the Cushing school? So that's weird. So, and calling it the Cushing Hatherley school is a huge mouthful, which totally is supported in data from what you just said and the survey. So that's just another reason in the rationale for starting fresh. This is a new building. It's a fresh start. It's going to be such a great just community building opportunity for that school to have a mascot and have a theme and have just this whole culture building experience around this name and this person and this identity there for them. So that speaks to that. We have Cushing and Hatherley are not being erased. They're everywhere around town. They have a highway. We've got Hatherley Road, a gorgeous representation of Timothy Hatherley, and Chief Justice Cushing, a fantastic man. We've got representation of him here in town, well respected. I think what I have learned is that Scituate is full of retired and educators who have since passed, who many folks feel deserve honor in our town, and I would love to see something. I am not a Scituate High grad. I am the wife of a Scituate High grad and soon to be 4 others. If this is something that inspires people to come up with some memorialization for former students or administrators or educators that people can think of a way to honor them, whether it's like something around town, like I'm happy to support people in that endeavor, because it sounds like there were some really inspirational teachers and staff members and who have really touched the lives of our generations of people who live here. And I would fully be on board for supporting whatever that would be. If it's not obviously this particular school, we can only name it after one entity. But sounds like people have some great ideas and great people who have really changed their lives that are Scituate residents and educators. So
that's a great idea. I'm on the, not a negative, I sit only positive. My school council that I sit with is Cushing, and one of the things that we've been talking about is in that redistricting goal that they're working on is sort of how to honor the legacy and memory of Cushing for all of the many students and people in the community that school has been special to, not only the kids that are there now, but obviously we've got generations of people for whom that building is very special. And part of that conversation has been about the name, and Hatherley as well. As a Hatherley mom, I don't think that we have been talking about the names Cushing and Hatherley very much. And so I actually think this new naming is a great opportunity to revisit some of those names around town, and even the names of our other schools. I think it's a nice opportunity to sort of revisit those, even if we are sunsetting some names as school buildings. That doesn't mean we can't have other ways to honor people, and it also is a great opportunity for kids to relearn about some of those people. So I think this is just overall, I think there's ways that we can find little rays of light in this opportunity to make room for more than one individual, no matter what, or entity, as you said.
Right.
Is there, not to make it more complicated, I know I asked this at the last meeting, but are there ways that we can honor other names either inside the building or in the access points to the building, meaning the driveways and so on?
The driveway is already named. I found this out. Okay. I need to look up more about for whom it is named, but I assume we would keep that. Okay. We do have a policy.
It currently has a name
at
does
have it at Hatherley School.
Okay.
Yes.
There are other memorials at Hatherley as well.
We have a policy on memorials that we can look at, but I do think that's a great idea. There are wings in that building. There's the media center. There are absolutely opportunities within it that we can use to think about that.
I think that will be, for me, for making decisions, I think that will make it helpful. I don't know how many naming opportunities there would potentially be for a policy.
Yeah.
Just something to think about as I weigh.
It's something we can maybe talk to the architect about. They might have some thoughts on this, like what's typical. We don't want to be naming like every
I've seen
Every
buildings that
room
do
in there,
There are
but-
schools that have like names everywhere.
But we
Class.
could, I mean, I don't know.
Like you said, there could be like 2 wings and whatever. You
There are sort of naturally, some wings when you when you go in, or the media center to me stands out as a opportunity just because it's right there, it's visible, it's very pretty and whatnot. Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone
Should we
else?
continue?
Yeah.
Any chance for a 5-minute break?
Yes.
Why don't we take a 5-minute?
Take a 5-minute break.
Take a 5-minute break.
Yeah.
We have to vote it. Motion to resume back into regular session here.
I'll make a motion that we resume our meeting.
Second, all in favor?
Second, I'll second it.
You missed it.
Oh.
Janice got it. Janice got
Okay,
that
we have approval of our minutes for March 2nd.
I make a motion that the school committee vote to approve the minutes of March 2nd, 2026.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we have the school nurse job description update revision.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm pleased to present a revision of our school nurse job description. Every time we have a retirement or a change, it's an opportunity to review the job description. And our beloved Cushing nurse, Linda Mardus, is retiring at the end of the year, and we need to post her position for next year. So I asked Kelly Bell, our Director of Nursing, as well as the Scituate Teachers Association, to look at this, and they both approved this as an updated job description. Really, the changes had to do with bringing it up to current terminology, current situation, what we call things, HIPAA rules, and all those kinds of things. So this has been approved by both of those people or organizations, and we're asking for your approval tonight so that we can post the position.
Thank you. Questions or anything? I read it. You did.
Looks good.
Yeah.
My only question, what you clarified, is that we're not adding it to the
Right.
same position, it's just a rewording of it. So.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion that the school committee vote to approve the school nurse job description as presented.
Second.
Alrighty, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, SHS robotics team, district regionals competition, April.
Thank you. I'm sharing the update on this agenda item. This is on behalf of the robotics team. Given that this proposal is for an overnight field trip, this would be if the robotics team qualifies for the district championship. They would go from Wednesday, April 15th through Saturday, April 18th. That's the week just before break. They would follow the field trip policy with the number of chaperones and be staying overnight in Springfield Thursday night, Friday night through Saturday. As you know, robotics are full day competitions. So all the students would be there all day. You see the numbers 8:30 to 8 a.m. to 8:30 and 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. Also included is the cost and how many days of school the students would miss. So those students would miss 2 days of school. So that's the request on behalf of the robotics team for a possible participation. They had a strong showing, as Anna mentioned last weekend. They have another competition at Revere in 2 weeks. So seeking the approval of the school committee for this overnight field trip.
So I see the cost to participate is $300. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So the cost of the actual trip, is there another?
Yes, it's $300 for each student.
I think that includes everything.
Correct.
Oh, okay.
Transportation,
Okay, I thought that's
That's
how
how
it
much.
participated.
If you look at the next
includes bus
includes
routes,
Oh, okay.
cashiers,
Perfect.
two
Okay.
gym dinners, two
That's
lunches.
Good job.
I assume the same applies, that if a family comes, we still have that money set aside. Okay, I just like to make sure.
It's actually a very low cost.
Yeah.
It's nice to see how many meals are included. I wish all of them were.
Seriously.
This is really nice. Yeah, that's it.
I appreciate the branding of the cyber sailors. They're always so consistent with their hand tone.
Yeah. I can make a motion on this. Yeah. You good? Everyone's good? Yeah. I can make a motion to approve the Cyber Sailors overnight field trip request to Springfield, Massachusetts on April 15th through 18th, 2026 as presented.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye. Thank you.
Dr. Leadership update.
Thank you very much. So today we had our professional day here at Scituate, and it was fantastic. We started the day with K-5 elementary teachers working with Allison Mello, who really took us through a lot of math interventions and things we can do to make math more fun and exciting for students K-5. All the departments also got together and were able to talk about instructional strategies used in the classroom. Later on in the day, we had an update from special education. And all the way around, it really met the needs of each individual person here. And I was impressed with the day. I walked around and visited all the different groups during the day. And it's a big decision to take a day off from school and really dedicate it to the needs of our staff. And they were working all day from 8 to 3, and I was very impressed. So that's really the only update I had. I enjoyed those days. Again, I know it's a big decision for the committee to give us those full professional days, but just know that they're used wall to wall and every minute of that time.
Excellent. Thank you. All right, we have our report of teaching and learning discussion. And Gregory. Thanks for waiting. Oh, sorry for doing that. You like together. Sorry. Sorry about it. Thank you. Nobody would question it.
All right, thank you. I'm just going to frame the presentation. So we're very excited tonight to present some middle of the year data. So we have our elementary curriculum coordinators, Megan Gregory and Heather Allen, and they'll kick off the presentation as a unified K-5 piece, and then Tara Simonak and Laura Messner will present the 6 through 12 data. So that's kind of the format. Here at the beginning, I just wanted to give a general frame to sort of shape the presentation. So as I mentioned, the purpose is to share out K-12 district data in ELA and math. We're presenting here in March because our students have finished their middle of the year assessments. So this is a really good opportunity to see how students and staff sort of have progressed over the course of the year. So we have 2 periods of benchmark data to look at. This data is really district-wide. So if there are questions about individual school level data, I would direct those questions to April and May when our principals and their school councils present their school improvement plan. So this really is holistic, district-wide data. So it'll highlight the trends. Each section will highlight the trends and action steps based on what the data shows. And I think just big picture, I would mention just the ability to have this data shows our commitment to monitoring student growth and achievement and trying to give teachers and staff, those people who are close to the students, an opportunity to have good information guiding them in how to support students. So in some parts you'll hear that we've, especially at the secondary level, shifted the assessment that we're using, and we don't necessarily have 3 years worth of data. But what we have built is a benchmark assessment system so that in time we'll have longitudinal data that will really help to support our teachers. So I think it's regardless of the outcome of the data, the fact that we have a monitoring system does help to make sure that we're keeping track of how students are doing. We are happy to comply with state mandates and federal regulations around once a year testing. I would just want to highlight that that data gives a snapshot of how students are doing at the end of the year and typically is not ready for teachers to look at until the following year. So our teachers are very invested in the success of their students, and they want real-time information on how their students are doing, and this system helps to give them that. So it helps us to support students and adjust instruction in year. So that's just a highlight of, well, why do we add another system on top of it? It's because our teachers need more real-time data, and students need supports in the school year, and the work that our curriculum coordinators, department chairs, and our teachers and principals do helps to support those efforts. So I'll hand it over now to Heather Allen and Megan Gregory, and they'll take us through the elementary data. You're welcome.
Thank you. We wanted to start by talking a little bit about the shift that we made this year. We've always tested students 3 times a year in literacy and math, and use that information to place students into groups and to support students during WIN and in Tier 1. About the middle of last year, we started talking about that when we test students at the end of the year, we don't really do much with the end of year data. We celebrate the growth that our students have made. We take a look at what trends we've seen in the classroom of, what went well and what we need to improve on for next year. But in terms of the student level data, we would test kids would leave for the summer, and then they would come back in and we would test them again as soon as they came in. This year we decided that we wanted to use that data really actionably at the end of the year. So when we had the end of the year data meetings last year, we put our students into groups. We obviously didn't know what classrooms they were in, but we identified an instructional area for each of those students, saying, based on how they've performed in first grade, here's what they need to focus on in the beginning of second grade. And we created what we call a bridge cycle. So at the beginning of this school year, teachers had lists of their incoming students. They knew exactly what each of those students needed to work on at the beginning of the year. And we started a bridge cycle on September 8th. We had students in intervention groups right off the bat, and they had a 5-week intervention cycle before we assessed students. And so we usually assess students in September. We assess them in October after we did this bridge cycle, and kind of brush the dust of summer off, because we find a lot of times the summer slide is very real. If kids haven't picked up a book in a while, if they haven't done some math problems in a while, it takes a little bit of instruction to get them back up to speed. So the data that you're going to see today represents that bridge cycle, that the beginning of the year was pushed later, as was the middle of the year as a result. The data we use for elementary is the same. In terms of the foundational skills for reading, we use the Dibble's 8th edition, administered one-on-one, and for global reading proficiency in grades 2 to 5, we use the computer adaptive STAR reading test.
And for math, these have been the same for a couple years now. So we use the Universal Screener for Number Sense, which is an interview-based math assessment for number sense in grades K to 4, and then the STAR math assessment, similar to reading, is a computer adaptive math assessment for students in grades 2 to 5.
The first data that we wanted to share was the results of that bridge cycle, so the beginning of the year data. If you take a look, this is data from the last 3 school years. Going left to right, you see the beginning of the year, the middle of the year, and the end of the year. This is aggregated as on the left for Dibble's K to 4, on the right for STAR 2 to 5. So along the bottom, you can see beginning, middle, and end. You see an upward trend when we're looking at Dibble's from the beginning of the year, where kids come in with more needs, until the end of the year. Wanted to point out that where our beginning of the year was this year is about where our middle of the year is every year because we had that bridge cycle. It was effective. We brushed the dust off. We, shook off the summer slide before we tested kids. The result was a lot of times a lot of kids pop as being needy when we test in September, but they are just kids who kind of need a little bit of a transition back into school when we kind of hit the ground running with doing what we needed for those kids. Our kids, beginning of the year test scores in both Dibbles and Star near about where it is for the middle of the year historically.
And we saw similar results for math. So if you look on the left-hand side, on the far right bar, that's our fall data. And you can see that is almost in line with last year's middle of the year data. So it's almost identical what we're seeing in the ELA. So we take that as an effective bridge cycle. And the benefit of that is we're not putting students in who are struggling or need extra support just because of the summer into these intervention groups for 12 weeks when they don't really need it. We want to save that for our really struggling students. So this bridge cycle sort of eliminates that. We're giving them the boost that they need, a quick 5-week cycle, and then they're actually in a group that they need. It's what they need. It's not, they're more accurate grouping. On the right-hand side, similar, it's the universal screener. Again, you see compared to last fall, there's almost no red and a smaller amount in yellow and orange. So similar results for both ELA and math. So one of the changes we've also made is we've started more robust data meetings. So last spring, principals, literacy specialists, math specialists, Megan and I, with Ryan, we met as a big group, which was one of the first times I think we've actually ever done that, it was great to have everyone at the table and contributing to this conversation. And what we did is we developed objectives and protocols for our data meetings because we saw that there were data meetings happening in every building, but they looked a little different. So this was a great opportunity for us to create just common protocols, talk through what needs to be there, what we're looking for, what are the goals of these meetings. And there was a common slide deck that all data meetings are using currently, and math specialists take that common slide deck and add in the data for the grade level for their building. But the skeleton of that slide deck is all the same, which is phenomenal. And Megan and I attend these meetings, so it's nice for us to see that it's just all pretty uniform. But when you dig in, it's the data is what you're digging into, and the only difference is the data. So during those meetings, the focus is on tier 1 trends. So looking across the grade level at that meeting, what are the things that we need to fix in our tier 1 practice as opposed to just individual students? Instead of just looking at how the students are performing, bigger picture, pulling back a little bit, identifying those tier 1 trends. Every student is discussed at these meetings, so we assign an instructional focus area for every student for math and ELA. And then also we're bringing in the SEL, the social emotional data. So we're having these really rich conversations about a whole student. So that started, so we've had 3 of these sort of rich data meetings. So far, we had 1 last spring, and then we've had our fall and winter. And each time we go through the process, we meet the literacy specialists and math specialists, and we reflect, how did it go? We refine it, we tweak our slides and the data that we're using that's gonna best support teachers to support students.
And then if we're looking at our middle of year data, starting with Dibbles, and so Dibbles is testing how our students are doing with the skills that contribute to successful reading. We're talking about decoding. Really exciting to see, if you look at the blue, those are kids who are exceeding expectations for the grade level at this point. We have a lot of kids, about half of our kids when you get into the upper grades, who are exceeding grade level expectations at this point. If you take a look at our neediest grades, it's kindergarten and first grade, which makes sense because those are the grades in which we're teaching kids how to read. That's what our tier 1 is focused on in those areas. And when we're thinking about those students who continue to need support in decoding and in fluency, in third grade and fourth grade, those bands of yellow and red get smaller, and those are the kids we're really targeting with our literacy specialists. And then if we pull back and kind of take a look at a bigger view, again, this is beginning, middle, and end for the last 3 years. You'll notice that when we made such big gains at the beginning of the year because of our bridge cycle, we ate into the growth that we typically see from beginning of the year to middle of the year. We're still right about where we typically are at the middle of the year. This is for Dibbles K-4. In our grade level collaboration meetings, we have really dug into this data. Whichever data is the freshest when we have those grade level collabs, we take a look at it. We look at grade level trends, and we really think about how do we match those student needs to what evidence-based instruction would support that. So our identified trends just globally, K-4 and Dibbles, our kindergarten and first grade students have really strong phonemic awareness skills. When we look at how our kids are doing with phonemic segmentation, they're doing great. We've been using Heggerty for 6 years now. Kids can separate sounds in a word. Gangbusters, they're great at it. We notice that there's a need for early letter sound fluency. We need to get our students in K and 1 when they see a letter to be able to not just recognize the name of the letter automatically, but the sound of the letter automatically. In grades 2 to 5, our reading accuracy exceeds the reading fluency. Great place to start. Our kids are reading words accurately, and a focus area for us in grades 2 to 5 is to work on the rate and prosody at which they're reading. Is your reading sounding like talking, or is it sounding slow and labored like a robot? And then finally, the need for sentence level comprehension instruction in grades 4 and 5. In Dibbles, we do a sentence level comprehension assessment, and we know that kids have to be able to comprehend at the sentence level before they can comprehend at the passage level or at the story level. So in all of those grade level collaborations we've really dug into what sentence level comprehension means and how do we understand complex sentences and syntax and how sentences are put together. Kind of shifting to STAR, so from the building blocks to reading to how is reading going as a whole. You'll notice as a district we need to work on, we have kids who are decoding really well, and we're working on the bridge to comprehending globally. STAR is thinking about our kids understanding what they read. Are they putting all of those pieces together? We have more students who are popping in that yellow range for needs improvement, and that those are the kids we're focusing on. And again, when we've been talking in those grade level collaboration meetings, we're thinking about what are the other components besides just decoding and foundational skills, vocabulary, syntax, background knowledge that we need to bolster that group of kids who are proficient with decoding but still struggling with comprehension. And then this is the same view of looking at beginning, middle, and end of STAR across grades 2 to 5. The identified trends, which are super interesting across the board, is that when we look at craft and structure for literature, our students are able to identify and talk about and use craft and structure for literature more readily than they are for informational text. So a big focus at all of our grade levels has been thinking about informational text structure, identifying the 5 text structures, how do we get kids to ask questions when they're reading and to recognize when an author is using a different text structure. So that's been across all grade levels that we're really digging into that. It seems like our kids are really comfortable with story structure because they've been listening to stories since a young age, and the informational text structure is a little bit trickier. There's also a need to focus on synthesizing ideas across informational texts. So if we're reading two different informational texts, we're going to pull out information from both of those. We also see that in our MCAS data, is that being a need in our grades 3 to 5. And that interesting, because it's kind of the inverse of the first one, our students are able to read informational texts at a higher level of complexity than they are able to read literary text. So while they are able to talk about the craft and structure that an author uses for a literary text, they're actually able to globally comprehend higher levels of informational text than they are literary. So those are kind of the big trends that we dug into in our grade level meetings and collabs this year.
Can I just ask a question?
Yeah.
Sorry if I'm probably missing something, but I'm just trying to figure out, so taking a look at the star reading middle year.
Yeah.
Just grade 5, for example, those are percentages, correct?
Yes.
So then when we go to the growth, we have numbers. I'm trying to figure out why we don't use percentages or numbers in both of them. I'm just trying to calibrate in my mind.
So if we look at the second one, the next slide, these graphs come from Open Architect, which we are using this year across pre-K to 12 across the district, and they use the number of students instead of percentages. So sometimes you'll notice a bar that doesn't look as long as other bars because the cohort changes from year to year.
We could get, I was just thinking,
You can just manually calculate
you were
it.
probably thinking about your data binder.
I was.
Wishing you had an updated
You
insert.
can just make, I mean, I did it,
But Ryan could just run a new report
I just did it
that
on my
shows
phone,
us.
I mean,
know.
I can do the
You could do
percentage.
it, but Ryan could also just click of a button, rerun that report, and we'd have it. So.
Yeah,
was
and
just
I
wishing
think,
for
however,
updated data for his data binder, like that noted.
yeah, and I would say too, the reading specialists and math specialists slice this in several different ways. They create their own Excel spreadsheets for assigning students to win. Just from this, which is a great screen grab, thank you. When the teachers click down on it, inside of each of those 41 is the 41 students as well. So then you have instantly who are the kids in green, who had scored green or orange. So you're right that that's not a consistent format, but yeah, we'll think about ways to make sure we can represent it consistently. And Megan, can you talk a little bit about why there seems to be why yellow increases over time? Because I think if we're asking like logical questions on STAR as well. Sorry, next slide. So why do we see a little more in the upper grades? Why do we see the need for more? Does the assessment get harder? Is the demand on students more challenging? So can you speak a little bit to the fact that we're not chasing the same skills over time?
Yeah, and especially in STAR. So the metrics we're using for STAR are the state benchmarks, which are tied to MCAS prediction. So basically, when we take a look at how kids are doing in these 3 bands, it's tied to, these are the 3 bands for MCAS. And they take the end of the year where we expect kids to be when they take MCAS, and they correlate it back. So a student could take the same test on a Monday and a Friday. We wouldn't do that. It's a great, great protocol, but they could get the exact same questions correct on Monday and the exact same questions on Friday, and their percentile rank would be lower on Friday because it's closer to the end of the year. So those percent, like sometimes teachers have asked, like, what's the percentage cutoff that they need to be at? It depends on the day that the kids take it, because it is so finite that it will say, like, okay, at this point in the year they need to be here, but then a week later they need to be just a little bit slightly higher to be able to reach the end goal. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great explanation, and I just want to reassure people that when you look at these, kids aren't sliding backwards. They're swimming upstream in a river whose rate is changing as they're swimming, and there is a pace at which we want them to be making progress. But I want to reassure people that everyone's swimming and moving forward. Sometimes the rate of what the expectation is also shifts, so we're not, as students progress, yes, we're paying attention to who needs more, but I don't want, it's important with Megan's explanation that students aren't doing worse. It's more about the rate of progress and trying to give us information about who might need a little more support to get to where they need to be. So thank you for, because
And
when you look at these four,
It's a good metaphor. Yeah, that is. And I think sometimes parents notice that too on the parent-facing star reports. You might see that your kid is like in the green or the blue, but then there are subcategories where it's red or yellow. And so the reason, my understanding, is because those skills are not expected to be fully mastered yet, because it's still wherever we are in the beginning or the middle of the year. And so sometimes I think that can be a little bit confusing. How is my kid, still looking like they're okay globally, but like they're missing these things, but that's expected. So there's like some of that we just know, and that's okay. So I think this is sort of similar. Like we know that they're on a path and the year is progressing.
And I think one of the most powerful things that we look at when in those data meetings is we look at what is the student's performance level and also their growth level. And we kind of take a look at kids with, high growth and high performance is what we want for all kids, but we really celebrate those kids who might have a lower performance number, but they've made high growth. And there are tons of those kids, and those are the kids that we're really celebrating. Like, they haven't made it yet, but look at how far they've come. So that's what we really like to highlight in those meetings as well. And then just our next step, action steps we're really focusing in those grade level data meetings to identify those tier 1 trends. So we're taking a look at globally, how are our third grade kids doing, and what's an area of need that we can address with everybody, and not just in small wing groups, but what would our tier 1 instruction look like? How can it change to meet the needs of the kids based on the data? And those change from the beginning of the year to the middle of the year because the data changes. The second one is that during those grade level collaboration days, we're really digging into that data, and then we're matching it to what the science of reading and the science of writing say about instruction. So we'll take a look at a piece of data from DIBELS from a particular grade level, and we'll notice a need for oral reading fluency, and then we'll do some digging into what does evidence-based fluency instruction look like in the classroom. I'm actually going to come to the bottom one first. We are in our curriculum review cycle for ELA right now. This year, we're focusing on gathering data. We are looking at our student data. How are our kids performing in different areas of literacy? We surveyed teachers about what's working in classrooms and what's not working in classrooms. And our committee, which is made up of teachers from all schools, all grade levels, special educators, literacy specialists, we're really digging into the research to what does the research say about what we should be looking for in a curriculum. One of the things that came out of that teacher survey that we sent out to all elementary teachers was a need for writing professional development. So a next step for us is beginning writing professional development in the next school year, because we really want to make sure everybody has the same level of knowledge of the current evidence-based practices in writing.
So here's our current, the middle of your universal screener data. Clearly, I think for everyone that's jumping out is our K-2 number sense is very strong. The students coming to us from the ECC and preschools around town, they're coming in strong with strong number sense, which is excellent. And then we're continuing that work as they progress in kindergarten, grade 1 and grade 2. You will see that there's a bump in yellow for grade 3 and 4. Part of that, I'll speak to grade 4, is because just the way that our curriculum is laid out, they haven't hit some of those concepts yet. For example, fraction on the number line, that's part of the universal screener, the written portion. The middle of the year has assessment as a interview-based part and a written part, which just ups the challenge also. But they haven't touched on all of the concepts yet. So The past 3 years, if you look at the trends, they do pretty well at the beginning of the year, and you'll see specifically in fourth grade a dip, and then they come back up because they will have covered just certain topics. So the trends clearly grades K to 2 have a strong number sense, and the things that we're noticing after the data meetings that we're identifying with math specialists and grade level teams is that we're looking at grade 3 and 4, and they're really struggling to think flexibly about numbers. So they tend to they have one strategy for a certain problem, and they just hone in on that strategy and they hold on to it, and they're just not thinking about the approach that makes sense for that problem. So if the question was 200 minus 198, some students are gonna stack them and do the algorithm. It pains me to see that, but so think about that. What if a student receives that and that's what they're doing, then we have to fix our tier 1 practice. So then we are now reflecting how can we move our students to be more flexible thinkers, and that's exactly what building strong number sense is teaching those flexible thinking. So that's what we'll be working on for grades 3 and 4 in terms of number sense. And then here is our middle of year STAR math data. And again, these are percentages. Thank you for pointing that out. Megan and I make these just homegrown because they are a little bit easier to process. So again, you can see grade 2 compared to how strong they look on the universal screener. They have really strong number sense. Now transferring those skills to all of the concepts is something that obviously we're working on. So 91% of our second graders were meeting expectations for the universal screener, and then we have 66.5%. I'm pretty sure that's correct. For our meeting in grade 2. So thinking about it, it's an online assessment. It's really the first time that they're taking an assessment online and working it out on paper. And this is also, like Megan was describing, this is they're swimming upstream, as Brian would say. And so it's a moving target. So that's where we are currently. So here is our growth. And again, because we did the bridge cycle, we don't see that real jump from our fall to middle of the year, which feels nice to look at in terms of math growth. But when you think about actual students in front of you, this is what's best for students. So things that we've identified as trends through our data meetings, we need to continue to focus on number and operations, base 10 and fractions across the board for all grade levels. Students don't have a solid understanding of measurement and data at this point of the year. Part of that is also where the measurement and data unit falls for their particular grade level. So it's a little bit different than ELA because they're taught in sort of chunks for content. So some of the grade levels actually haven't gotten to that unit yet. We're going to continue our work with fluency because we know grades 3 and 4, that's part of the number sense that's missing. So that's an area that we're always going to be working on. And then for all grade levels, operations and algebraic thinking was our strongest domain. So we're just going to continue to work and focus on that. So our action steps are our grade level data meetings. So continue that strong work. Our literacy and math specialists have worked so hard to make these meaningful data meetings. So the work that they put into it, it's really them and not Megan and I. We did the work at the beginning to make sure we have these protocols in place, but what math and literacy specialists are doing and leading these data meetings is really what's making a change and a difference in classes, because not only are we identifying students for the win group, but we're really talking about tier 1, which is going to make the change across the board for all students. And so the math specialists will continue with that, digging into the data, presenting at data meetings. And then they follow up with progress monitoring during common planning time with teachers. So that's something that's ongoing. It's not just 3 times a year. That's an ongoing conversation that they are working tirelessly to make an effective impact on student learning. The cross-district collaboration, Megan and I have been leading full day PD sessions for grade levels. We've done one a month for the year just to get everyone for the district together in one room. So last week I had kindergarten, so we met at the public library. We had a full day of just like strong, rich conversation about teaching and learning and sharing ideas and looking at data and what are our best practices. So we're going to continue with that both in literacy and math, and that's been a really great opportunity for everyone to get on the same page and move the needle on teaching and learning. Professional development, Tom had mentioned it earlier. Allison Mello came today. She was phenomenal. I've already gotten so many emails. When can she come back? She's truly engaging and she knows the math one, and because she knows it so well, she's able to, and she was a teacher, an elementary teacher, so she's able to connect with the teachers and really show them how just small little tweaks to their teaching can make a huge impact. So that's something we're continuing to be excited about. And with that, she's sharing sort of resources and hands-on material that are going to enhance the learning. So teachers left today with door prizes of beaded number lines, which seems silly, but these are the opportunities we have to, you hear me talk about it in science a lot, but hands-on learning opportunities, both in science and math, are that rich learning, and that's where we're going to take these abstract math concepts and make them concrete and let them stick for kiddos so that they can remember the skill they learned in 4th grade and carry it with them to middle school and high school math. And then finally, we're really working through those grade level collaboration meetings is to develop a bank of common standards-based end of module assessments, because the math program that we currently have isn't 100% aligned with Massachusetts state standards, which is sort of typical of all sort of box programs. So we want to make sure that the way we are assessing our students is aligned with the standards so that we can give accurate feedback on where they are and predict how they will perform in mastering their standards by the end of the year. I think that's it.
Questions or I just wanted to say thank you guys for the presentation. I think it was really clear, and I really liked both the presentation of the data and your description of the action steps. I feel like it creates a nice like closed loop for us, which I think we all really appreciate. My only question was just I think sometimes when parents caregivers might be listening, they might have heard both of you mention like how over the summer kids are sliding. We kind of know this, and then they come and they do the break cycle, which sounds like it works brilliantly, so that's amazing. But I think sometimes parents might be wondering, well, what can we do to be more supportive during the summer? We both named fluency, both with numbers and with reading, and those to me strike as skills that parents actually could really help with. That's not like phonics, like you can't have a parent work on that per se, but fluency, like if you teach a parent like, hey, you know, you read and the kid echoes back, or you read a page, they read a page. There's so many things that parents could actually do with that. And so it just makes me think about that parents would probably be really willing to support, knowing that like, yeah, I could do some of this over the summer and prevent some of that like total like, oh my God, I haven't like seen the like my own 6-year-old said this year, it was the alphabet, Mom, the alphabet. When it was time to go back to 1st grade, and I was like, yeah, the alphabet. And I thought to myself, like, oops, I guess I didn't do a great job this summer, you know? But I think every parent has that moment where we're like, oh, I guess I could have done better. But I think that's just maybe an opportunity to think about. I just think a lot of parents would.
Yeah, we do send their summer work. It looks a little different for ELA and math, obviously, but for math, ST Math is available all summer for those who choose to use it. There's a PDF version as well for people who would like an analog version, as Brian calls it. Or there's what I actually think is more beneficial is there's on the thing there's a grid of just games that everyone has in their house, just to pull those math games out that people may not think of math games. So it could be War or Go Fish, and they're all on it, but we share them. And those, for that exact reason, because most of us are parents, and it's like, oh, right. But you could pull out a deck of cards and play a game. That's like an easy one. And then the kids are gonna enjoy it more and it's not gonna be sort of torture sitting at the dining room table
Yeah.
to do it too. So
Yeah, and I think if parents kind of see that rationale, again, like a reminder of like why this is important, you know, I think that's also maybe motivating. But thank you guys, I thought it was great.
Wish everybody stuck around.
Yes,
See all the
I
hard
know the
work.
crowd
Behind
left
us
before the
is
meeting.
nice.
Then
No,
people joined
reveal.
remotely. Yeah, we actually have a pretty good crowd.
No, I do have a question actually for Dr. Rapp. I know that you guys had mentioned that we're gonna see school level material results in April, May. I'm curious if you'll take that into consideration as you consider some options with these Cushing fifth graders that potentially want to stay together. From my perspective, I'm thinking, how was their performance in their current setup? And hey, if it's great, then maybe it is some evidence that they should stay together. Maybe if performance isn't that great, then maybe that's a reason to try something else. Just a thought.
Thank you. I'll certainly take it into account. The one comment I wanted to make is a lot of social emotional concerns over the transition were raised tonight, but the one area I'm not worried about is curriculum alignment. The elementary schools are aligned, and I just want that crystal clear in this community, because that's not the case everywhere, but our 4 elementary schools, and when we go to 3, I have no concern over curriculum alignment among all of the teachers K to 5, because they're working so hard in grade levels and in teams to make sure that the same thing is being done in all the buildings.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we will continue on with 6 to 12, ELA and math.
Again, this is Tara Simonek, who's the math department chair, and Laura Messner, the ELA department chair.
Excellent.
How are you? Hello. Thank you for having us. For waiting on.
Yeah.
Listening to the thunder up there, it's very exciting.
We wanted to sort of reiterate Ryan's statement. I appreciate that we have the same discipline. I appreciate that there's continuity from K to 12, but secondary is a different animal. So while we are benchmarking, it is still quite new to us, which we'll kind of talk about. And the way benchmarks work is a little different in secondary.
Yes, definitely. Although it's really exciting. Like, I'm really excited. You might think that the 6 through 12 department chair of math is very excited about the data that she's getting from the information. But for me, it's really exciting to have this consistent program. To have STAR math that goes up to grade 10, although the high school is a different creature than the middle school, as we kind of all know. It's just exciting to have that information and to be able to use it to move the department forward and move the students forward.
Before we go away from the slide, so we just wanted to remind you, we have moved to STAR reading and STAR math as our benchmarking tool. For me at the middle school, for Tara at the middle school and the high school. I'm using a different tool at the high school called Common Lit. I can talk about the rationale for that a little bit, and there's an asterisk there because we only are benchmarking students that are not in AP because they're sort of assessed differently and captured in a different category. Common Lit is a platform, like I first got introduced to it around 2016. It started as a text library that would gather data based on text that we would plan to use anyway with students, but you could get reading level data on it that was sort of MCAS predictive. So teachers have been using it all over the place in as a supplement to their curriculum. And then it came out with, it's teacher created, it came out with an assessment tool that's aligned to our state benchmark. So we decided to go with that because it was already familiar to teachers and students. And I was not entirely sold that STAR was, like they purport that they're a high school tool. I don't really buy it from the English angle. So that's why we went with that. Yes.
Can I just provide one more piece of context from a K-12 perspective is that now in the middle school, teachers would have access to, for ELA and math, essentially since grade 2 on the Renaissance platform in STAR, like a single line, a contiguous assessment that's used and consistent. So eventually you'd be able to see a student's 2 through 8 history in ELA or math So here in the first year, right, if you have an 8th grader, that student did not take it because they're taking STAR for the first time in ELA and in math. So we don't have grade 7 results for that child or grade 6. They were there in grade 5. But with each successive year, we'll be 1 year closer to having that sort of longitudinal data consistently aligned. So that we're really, like I said at the beginning, we're building a system to improve how we keep track of how students are doing. So here in year 1, you're not going to see how the 8th graders did in 7th grade on STAR, but where we feel like we've made a really good move toward a more consistent system K-12. So I just want to kind of add that on top based on what Megan and Heather said too. Thank you.
So in our math department, we really believe that every student is a math person, can succeed in math. We're working on building students' confidence in their ability to do math. We foster an inclusive environment where every student has access to the challenging grade level work, regardless of their starting point. And we are working on prioritizing that we're teaching students how to think through a problem and to persevere through their problem solving as they're working on. It's more than just getting the right answer, right? Like what's the problem solving method they're going to use to get to their solution. And here is our data so far this year. I mean, obviously because this is our first year using STAR, we don't have trends for the past several years. We have information for, we benchmarked the students in grade 6, 7, and 8 at the beginning of the year. And then at the end of each trimester, and because the meeting got moved, now we have into trimester 2, so we have a little extra information. As you can see that there's the data showing improvement in the proficiency throughout 2025-26. You can see clearly from the data that the 6th grade is showing the highest projected proficiency. And from when we break it down a little bit further, we have that the students have a pretty good solid understanding of ratios and proportions. When we look at the standards, we can see that they don't quite yet have the solid understanding of geometry or statistics, although we do tend to do geometry and statistics towards the end of the school year. So I am looking forward to that as we do the end of the year benchmark. For the high school, so the high school, it's going to sound silly, but the high school is obviously different than the middle school. In the middle school, we have 6th, 7th, and 8th grade standards that the STAR has developed their benchmark around. The high school isn't quite the same. We don't have a 9th grade course. We don't have a 10th grade course. Our freshmen tend to take geometry, but in other school districts, maybe it's algebra 1. So it's not exactly the same. The beginning of the year test does act that same way. It assesses sort of both those geometry and algebra standards, and we use that at the beginning of the year. One of the reasons that I actually liked STAR from a math perspective is you could sort of hone in the test to just focus on algebra skills or geometry skills. For us in particular, honing in on the algebra skills is really important, especially at this time of year when we're making course recommendations for next year. So we kind of liked that part. So we did an algebra only test before we had to make our recommendations, and the blizzard hit right, or the beginning of February. And I was still able to sort of get the information to see what percent are meeting and exceeding. At the end of the year, we're planning on doing another sort of combined they call it the enterprise test, but it has both of the algebra and geometry skills in it and standards in it. So we'll do that again at the end of the year so we can see sort of this overarching arc and seeing how students did at the beginning and the end. As far as sort of when I pulled out the data of sort of where people are struggling, it wasn't really standards based as much as sort of this skills based of Heather was sort of talking about it, that idea of like what's the right, like they hone in on like one way to do a problem instead of sort of seeing the patterns overall of how to solve the problems. And that's one of the pieces that we are working on. So they know how to apply things, right? Like they sort of focus in on like how to get the right answer and thinking about sort of the structure and sort of what they can do to apply that to another problem. They do have a really good, solid understanding of interpreting functions to describe their key character. I know this is very exciting for you. So they describe the key characteristics of functions. It's really exciting for me, actually, as a high school teacher. I think that's really exciting. I look at that as like the new program that we put in. The Algebra 2 curriculum is really strongly focuses on those key features, and we're seeing that sort of pass on to this test. So that's exciting for me. Functions aren't exciting for everyone, but they are exciting for me. We also have AP data. We offer a lot of APs in math. We have our AP Stat. We offer both BC and AB Calc. We have 2 computer science A, which is like a programming class, and then computer science principles, which is it's not quite programming. They do develop an app that they use or that they turn in. And so we did have 3 years of that data. So we did promote those 3 years of data so that the percent that are under 3 or above, but also sort of the total number of students that were taking the test as well. You can see it's been pretty steady. There's been an increase in computer science principles. I think that might have been 2022. That was the first year. I'm not exactly sure, but that was one of the beginning of the years. They just started that then. Things that we're working on, like I said, we're excited to have our 3 times a year annual benchmarking. It's nice to be able to have that information, have that data, and use it. In the middle school, we're using it in particular to create win blocks, but also our math labs that we use, which are tier 3 supports within the middle school. We've been working, this is year 2 of the new math program. The exciting pieces of the new math program are having that cohesive student experience. So if you have that shared math vocabulary from 6 through, I'm going to call it sort of 6 through 10, without getting into the weeds in it, but up to Algebra 2, and it's sort of they're using sort of that same vocabulary and building off of each program, and they have sort of that shared problem solving routines experience. So we're still working on those aspects of it. We're still working on like which problem solving routines best promote that student thinking that we're looking for, so that we can know what the right thing is to do to solve a problem. They also have their own little intervention program too that came with it. Honest talk is last year we implemented it and our brains were exploding. So this year we're really focusing in on being able to investigate that program a little bit more. And then we also have been working with Allison Mello too, to be working on what instructional routines and methods we can use in our high school and middle school math classrooms to make math visible, encouraging students to talk and think and discuss the math more. That mathematical discourse is really important, I think, at the secondary level for us. We're excited to be working with her again next year to continue that work. So just speaking as I've been teaching here for 30 years, so speaking as a math teacher, what's really exciting is having like math PD. That's a really exciting thing for me and for the other teachers, just so you know. We don't get that very often where we just have pure math focused and someone's coming in and knows the math and does the math with us, and that's a really exciting thing for our department, pre-K through 12, I'm sure. But we're always wanting to work on our tier 1. Like, what are those strategies in the classroom that make math instruction work for students? I don't know if that's the right word, but that's what I'm thinking about. And after listening to our counterparts there, I think about all the ways we can improve our data protocols. The data is really, this data is really new for us, so I don't know we have those set yet. So that's sort of on the data. We're going to build it. Laura and I are going to build it. We're going to work on that. And we're going to build it together. So those are the things that I'm really excited and fortunate and grateful that we have that opportunity to work with here in Scituate.
I had a question. It's not related to the data. I'm just more curious, like in conversations around math, are you seeing any downward pressure in terms of computer science and programming in terms of AI? Like AI becoming a thing, are they still, because a lot of people who are programmers are saying their jobs are being replaced by AI, and I'm just wondering if you're seeing anything at math conferences or in conversations about classes emerging that would.
So, in full disclosure, like computer science isn't necessarily my, strong suit.
Yeah.
Maybe Ms. Hallahan is sort of here to talk more about it. But is it a concern? Yeah, I'm assuming it is. I don't know if it's necessarily a concern that our students are feeling.
I was just
mean,
wondering if they
yeah.
were, if there, what kind of
I don't think
conversations were
I
being
don't
had
think I
about.
have. Yeah, I don't think I have heard that. We haven't talked a lot about
Okay.
it.
Just wondered.
Now I'm wondering. That feels like a good Wednesday morning conversation for me to have with Ms. Hallahan. I'm always excited about it.
I was just curious.
I don't know. When I was at the robotics competition on, was that yesterday?
Both days.
Yeah, I was there. I was there yesterday. I think it's been a long day today.
More of a curiosity.
It was just so exciting to watch them working hands-on on that. And so when you said that, I was like, oh, they were just really into it and doing the coding. But you know what? Carrie was talking about how they do use AI to sort of help with some aspects of it. So they're sort of using it to their advantage. But it's a great question.
Yeah. Ryan, can you remind us, or me, maybe everybody else remembers, how we found Allison Mello?
We were reaching out at the implementation of our program last year and looking for somebody who explicitly supports math instruction. And just from my travels and professional development circles, and she comes across. She runs a conference every year at Gillette Stadium, but I think Tara and Heather touched on it well. She has experience as a math teacher. She's also engaging and can talk to math. And is very committed, I think, as an adult to helping all kids access math and really thinking about, hey, look how we're moving around now, and look how we can use this simple beaded number line. So we partnered with her last year. I think I was joking with Tom today, and I said the most successful thing that you can do in your professional development is get the same person to show up the next year, because a lot of PD, the term is drive-by PD, someone flies through and you never see him again, and they're feel great on March 16th. But Allison was partnered with our district through the strength of our budget and the work of our curriculum coordinators, department chair. So she started last year, she's had this full year, and our budget is supporting this work with her next year. So I think, people don't have all the answers, but your program never has the answer either. It could be Eureka, and we didn't talk about programs today. We talked about what can teachers do, right? What can you do tomorrow that's different? And we learned 3 things today that any teacher could implement tomorrow regardless of the program. So that's kind of how we started the partnership with her.
She has lots of experience.
Yes, it's great. And last but not least.
Oh no, wait! I'm sorry. We forgot about the kids.
Sorry.
Hi. I used a little alliteration there. I got excited for that at the end of the math talk. We want to celebrate the students, right? So, we have our math team. And you can see we have our officers up. There's a lot of overlap between the math team and the robotics team. They had a great season. They finished second in their league. We're working hard at sort of connecting the Gates math team with the high school math team. And so the Gates math team is doing a math meet on, it's really just it's just an internal math meet, but it's math, so yay. So they're gonna do that on April 2nd, and we'll have some high school students come and connect. Mr. Blake is on that. And then we have our Math Honor Society induction ceremony on Wednesday, May 27th. There'll be snackies if you wanna come and see that. And then here's our cyber sailors. Yep, the pink is on brand. There it is. I did not have my pink sweatshirt yesterday. I had a blue one on, but it was good. So they competed this past weekend. They're competing in 2 weeks in Revere. And yeah, they're a big part of the welcome board night. There's nothing more exciting than watching that robot shoot baskets into things. That's kind of fun and it's really enjoyable. So yeah, you can see that the officers are somewhere. Yeah. Off to the side. So we want to celebrate the students as well.
Carrie would like to speak.
Oh, hi, Carrie.
I'm a better talk. It's not public comment.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. I've been listening, so it's been enjoyable. I wanted to answer the question about the AI bit, and I have absolutely had this conversation, and I'm doing the research on it, but you can't use AI without understanding how programming works. So the fact that our students could learn coding and still use it professionally, regardless of their use of AI in the future, it's a major win for our students. So I encourage as many kids as possible to take AP CSA in high school, because it's certainly much harder in college. and it's very accessible at that beginning level. And once you learn it in high school, you can basically teach yourself anything. So, do you have any other questions on that?
No, that's great. That was a good answer too. So I like that.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Should have known she would be there. Absolutely. All right, here we go, last
Okay.
but not least.
And now, I feel like the pump was primed a little bit. So, in lieu of a vision statement, I kind of posed the question that I feel like is most prescient for us in the English department right now, which is how do we create authentic opportunities for sustained engagement with complex reading and writing tasks in the age of AI. I put it out to my teachers who are like, to say that one day is different from the next is like things are moving very fast, except of course the systems in education. Like there's still been no statement from the NCTE. They're like DESE is, I don't know what's happening at DESE, nothing useful. So we're sort of in this place where we have to, I'm sorry, we have to 8:30. We have to adapt. And so we are adapting. And I think that a lot of this is probably nothing earth-shattering or nothing new. I mean, some of this is probably what you experienced in high school. Like a lot of this is echoes of my own experience, like in the 90s, and a lot of it is that there are few substitutes for connecting with kids over complex and powerful texts. There are a few substitutes for connecting with kids or to pose, provocative questions or thought-provoking, perhaps not provocative, questions to kids to like really sink their teeth into. I think the other thing that we've really done is we've seen a pattern sort of moving more towards personal, like engaging kids more, engaging their opinions for them to have to justify why that's their opinion, to have to think deeply about it, to focus on process. We've spent a lot of time, I mean, it's also nothing new, but sort of with a renewed focus of conferencing with kids so that with their writing and their reading so that they can view their progress, so that they can, which is sort of inherently motivating, with just making things more personal. And then we've done some analog stuff too, but like sort of necessarily. But I think what we're really trying to do is reiterate that, like, to the point that Carrie made is that, kids can't use AI to write if they don't know how to write. They can't ask a bot to refine a response if they don't know what makes a good response and why that makes a good response. And also, like, writing is thinking, and that is so much of what we have to do in schools. We have to think, and we have to think about our thinking and all that. So that was sort of my way of addressing the vision piece. And because it'll help frame some of what's to come. I also, just sort of an additional plug, it has forced us to really revisit a lot of our practices. Like we've had the middle school library media specialist has come talking to us about like all the changes that we're aware of them because we see them, but she really helped us to understand the influence of these changes that Google has made that are just now part of our ecosystem that we sort of just passively accept unless we do differently. And so that's going to force some changes as far as like how we approach research and how we instruct kids to approach research and how they should consider AI and how they shouldn't consider AI and things like that. And then I also, one of the things that I think we do incredibly well in this district is celebrate reading. And I think that the seeds of that are planted, firmly in the elementary school. But like if you walk around the middle school, the kids always have their little independent reading book. There are spontaneous reading clubs. Like a bunch of juniors got together and just decided to read Slaughterhouse-Five and invited some teachers to it. There is a robust culture of reading. It's in the classrooms, it's outside the classrooms, but it is something that's present and that we're very proud of. Okay, data. So I want to be respectful of Peter's point about the fact that the charts look different. This was sort of very intentionally different. It's a table, not a chart, because we didn't want to use the charts because that makes it seem like there's continuity, and there's not continuity yet. We're hoping to build that. Mine is two different colors just to help remind that there's actually two different benchmarks. part of the reason why, another reason why we wanted to use Common Lit at the high school is because teachers already use it, but it has the opportunity to collect formative data, which helps us to better understand the more summative data of the benchmark that I didn't mention before. But this kind of, I don't really know how to interpret this yet because it's still so new. But previous to this, we had started benchmarking with a tool that had given us one data point that was, I think, intended to be more clear. It wasn't, because it gave us a data point but didn't give us any data on why that was the data point. So both STAR and Common Lit are actually very, very similar in how they structure it. We get strand level data. So whether kids are falling and exceeding, meeting, or approaching, we have some context as to why that we can then act on. So that's a huge benefit there. So I look forward to giving you trend data in the future, but this is where we are right now. Yep. And our AP data looks very different than math. We've got big numbers. One of the things that I'm yes, lots of classes. One of the things I'm really excited about, and a change we made recently, was AP Lang was historically just a junior course. We last year, I think it was last year, opened it up to seniors as well, and that was awesome. It opened up another avenue for English APs for kids who maybe weren't ready right off the bat junior year. But Lang is such an incredible course for communication. It's nonfiction driven. It's focused on rhetoric and argument. And kids who are not your typical English kids really like it and find value in it. So that was sort of that wound up being a great thing. And then our lit scores are pretty good. I'm happy with those. That's our, yeah. Okay. Samesies, 3 times annual benchmarking. It's a big deal. I wanted to lead with that because the time it took to train teachers on a new tool, to train students on a new tool, to train teachers on how to read the data, to train students on how to read the data or how to use the data, to figure out how to use it in our course selection process. All of that is a very labor intensive process. So that's a big thing. I wanted to lead with that. We are in our curriculum review cycle. I know we talked about this at the program of studies night, but there's a ton of things going on. We have level differentiation at the high school where they were sort of co-located before. We've broken them out again. We have revised courses with new texts. We're piloting a bunch of new texts this year. We are using the training through ATSR and now also through Health for Literacy to align better using objectives and formative assessment. We'll also be using our benchmark assessment to help inform some of that. We are piloting an evidence-based structured literacy program for our Tier 3 students at Gates. That is also new. We have sort of changed the structure a little bit every year to make it more and more fine-tuned. Now we're pretty satisfied that this is where we're going to keep it for the time being. Our data in the spring will show us the extent to which it is impacting those students. It's basically in terms of closing their foundational literacy gaps. And then, so fresh off of today, we participated in an all-day training with a representative from Health for Literacy, who is an adolescent literacy specialist. I know I've mentioned it before, but literacy is such it's such an elementary oriented thing. The entire landscape of literacy is very, very mostly elementary, but we know that adolescent kids also have literacy needs. And up to this point, we have teachers that are experts in content and experts in instructional practices, but there's been a gap in how we meet those more foundational needs in a way that also respects that kids are older and have life experience and things like that. So we are taking on, again, which is an incredible privilege to work in a district that so values content-based PD. We are participating in this 10-module course that is comprehensive training in adolescent literacy practices. I was saying to Ryan and Dr. Rao today that what I noticed today, I was like, couldn't stay in my seat. I was so excited about this. It dovetails so nicely with the ATSR practices and trainings, with formative assessment and with objectives and with feedback and criteria for success and all those things that we're getting through ATSR and that we'll continue focusing on in the future. It's a really nice complement. On deck. PD for writing instruction, which is partly kind of like help with, in the AI era, partly just because we're kind of overdue for it, partly because that tends to be our weakest area in our MCAS data. We are also looking to train or invest in our human capital, train our teachers on UVD curriculum design. It's also been a long time, but we have a homegrown curriculum. It just sort of puts an additional focus on needing to make sure that the people who are writing and creating it are really, really trained to the highest level that they can. We are going to continue our work on building adolescent literacy instructional capacity and embedding those practices inside our curriculum. And then we are also looking to renew and refresh our grade 12 course offerings to make them a little bit more representative of the needs of seniors, which are different now than they have been in years past. So I realize now this should be exciting English endeavors if we're really following the alliteration theme.
I followed your alliteration meeting.
Yes.
To come up with the other thing.
So it's sort of a random smattering of stuff that's going on, like kind of right up to the minute. The representative from the Simmons Center for Slavery and Justice spoke to 8th graders just last week. That was super cool. They're reading a text that takes place in during the Revolution, and there's lots of references to New England slavery, and typically kids are like, what are you talking about? Slavery in New England? No, that was in the South. So she had lots of, documents and things that, like storytelling that kind of blew kids' minds a little bit about what they thought they knew. We have a brand new course offering, a selective for seniors that's running for the first time this spring called Lean Into the Lyric. They just took a field trip Friday to a recording studio, which is really neat. It kind of uses hip hop as a means to deliver English standards. It's really exciting. Fathom, our literary magazine, has been reborn. It kind of died a little bit for a couple of years, but it's come back. We have a lot of interest from students about writing and art, and blending those two things together. There was a poetry slam in February. That was exciting. Yes. Oh, there's more. I know you all had discussed or had seen the Boston Globe article about the Gates student who was recognized for winning the national art contest to submit her beautiful artwork for the Iditarod Trail Mail contest. If you want to know what the heck our connection is to the Iditarod Trail Mail contest, you need to meet Brian Hickox, a 6th grade English teacher. He'll tell you all about it. He was the teacher on the trail in like 2019, I think, 2018, something like that. And he shared that enthusiasm with his students. The book fair was here last week at Gates. It was, again, great to see kids super excited about physical books. And I also wanted to shout out, there was another really cool opportunity that happened this fall that has happened now at least 3 years in a row. We have another selective course called Literature of Sport, and that teacher, along with, had invited a bunch of the life sciences teachers to get together to hear from Ray Nix, who's a fellow at the UCTE Center, to talk to kids about like brain science and concussions and CTE and all sorts of things. And then I found out after the fact that one of our recent grads had actually connected with him and went to his brain center and got to do some like holding of the brains while they were doing things with them. But just incredible and cool. And this is only a small cross section, so there's such good stuff.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Again, compliments, I think, on the presentation. I think that was a helpful storytelling and closing of the loop, including data and where you're going with it. And I think that always helps inspire trust, even when we see numbers that we're like, we want this to be better. We all want them to be better. We know that you guys do too, and that's why we're all here. And that's the hard work the teachers do every day. So thank you guys for that.
We recognize you're in the beginning stages of this too.
For sure.
And, you know, it's great
We're so
foundational
happy.
work. You've done so much.
It
feels like it. Other things on your plates as well, and you know, just one piece of what you do and have done. So great job to start. And we're looking forward to what's next. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for staying with us all night.
Yes.
And you as well. All right. I didn't see any warrants in our backup this evening. Nope. So we are clear on that. We have a subcommittee report.
We do.
Okay. You'll find a memo in your backup this evening.
This involves all of us,
From
guys.
Nicole and Maria.
So, don't get too cozy or think we're done. This is called running focus groups to contribute to superintendent hiring needs assessment. So let's not forget that the other important thing that we are in the midst of is this needs assessment that we have, let me think, I think it was either the beginning of January or end of December when we first discussed publicly that we were going to conduct a needs assessment. So, and then we hired First Beacon Consulting Group. You guys remember that?
Yep. Yes.
So here we are,
Maybe our
fast forwarding.
third, fourth public update on this,
Yeah,
just to be clear.
For the record.
Yeah.
So we are fast forwarding to the portion of the process where we're ready to start doing some of this work. Now you might also remember that we agreed to take on some of the focus groups because we wanted to not have our consultant Patty doing all of them, partly because it is expensive to have someone else do these. But Nicole and I did sit with Patty and developed questions, kind of like a protocol, and we have set her off to go do some other sets of interviews. So she is doing some interviews, but we are taking on this subset of interviews. So as a reminder, the outcomes of this work will be a candidate profile outlining desired skills and behavioral traits that are desirable for Scituate, an updated superintendent job description, and a critique of our current superintendent contract, offering advice on ways to update it and bring it closer to alignment with our needs. So those are 3 things I think are great, they're important, and we need them. So this is good. The way that these focus groups will run, they'll be run by 2 school committee members together so that we avoid a quorum, but also are not alone. They'll be in person. They will not exceed 60 minutes. They will follow the script that's outlined below. We are charged with taking typed notes. Well, we talked about this a little bit. She advised us against recording because sometimes that makes people feel uncomfortable speaking. So while that would make our lives easier, she advised that we should probably take type notes. You can take handwritten notes, but at some point you need to type them. So that's the deal. And you can tag team with the other person that you're with to make that happen. We are keeping speakers anonymous in said notes, and we can share them directly with Patty when they're complete. So, as a reminder, the groups that we are engaging with are listed below, and one of the things we need to do tonight is assign ourselves to them so that we can proceed with working on them. So, as everyone's having a chance to look at our little list here, there are 4 groups. I want to take a moment to talk about students. So, we really want to get student voice. It's a theme for us, I guess. And we thought you guys would be helpful as our student reps in helping us do this. We would love to have you guys take like a little bit more ownership of this, but we also understand that you are busy and have a lot going on. And so if this feels too overwhelming, just like let us know and we can help you. But what we're really looking for is your thoughts on how we might compose a group of students that is representative. It doesn't need to be only high school. You could think about middle school or even maybe some upper elementary. We can think about that.
Maybe
Obviously,
like
there's
4th, 5th graders.
logistical things, blah, blah, blah. You got to think through it a bit. You guys can talk to each other. Think about what that representative group might look like, how and where and when would we get them together. And then we have that script down below. If you guys felt comfortable and wanted to, you could be the note takers and one of us will just be there to kind of like background support in case anything goes awry or you need us or whatever, we're there, but you guys could really lead it and completely run it yourselves. So you guys should talk to each other and then talk to us and let us know after the meeting, like what your thoughts are. And then one of us needs to sign up for that group regardless, maybe two of us, depending on Lugan's excitement and availability and capacity and all that stuff. All right, so that hopefully gave people a chance to think about which groups you all are excited to run. I'm gonna pop our names right in.
It's the deadline.
Personally, I don't care what group I do.
I think we would really like to wrap this
We have a little bit of a
before
time
April
frame.
break.
Trying to get it done.
So what you would do,
Because we have so many
you would
others.
do what?
I would do central office.
Central office, Peter. Love that, thank you.
Central office too.
Okay, Peter and Janice. Awesome, we got our first team.
You gonna take any notes, Janice?
I am.
I'm very good. That's a good team.
I'm very good
Team.
at partnered right
I'm
there.
gonna ask you
Maria,
questions, you're
I
gonna
can help
take
you
the
with
notes.
the parent.
Amazing. Carrie and I, great. Nicole, I'm putting you on department chairs. I'll do students. We'll talk.
Nicole, I can help you with the department chairs.
Sounds good.
Amazing. Amazing.
I figure
Okay.
Maria will take good notes and
I'll
I'll
just
just
help.
help.
I can certainly, yeah.
She's always typing away.
Yeah.
Do we have
So,
to do we have to consent these folks? Maybe. I mean, usually when you do qualitative interviews with people, you do consent if you're gonna use their data in decisions.
I mean, we didn't, that wasn't something that came up with Patty. We can ask her.
I
mean,
also
we-
wonder with students.
Because we're,
Like, they're
we
all
did not-
minors. Yeah, but they're minors.
As long as we let their parents.
Okay, I just wanna know, like,
Yeah,
even
we'll
in the
talk
course
about
of
that.
school, we have to be
Yeah,
mindful that
agreed,
there are
yes.
parents
Yes,
that we need to let them know.
I wouldn't want to do it without parent consent.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's
Personally.
oh, for
Okay.
students,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
For the
Yeah.
adults, I thought you were
Yeah.
talking.
I meant for
I don't-
both. but-
Okay.
yeah.
I don't know about that. It didn't come up when we talked to Patty, but you can see the script below. And if you have thoughts on it, just given that you do have some expertise in this topic, please do feel free to make suggestions and we can, circle up on it.
Just worried if they're- I mean,
yeah.
if, I don't know what her background is, I just know if we're gonna publish data from the
I
report.
think we're not publishing data. I think it's
Well, it
meant
could be foilable though, right? I don't know, I just,
But
I
the
don't know.
names would be redacted.
Yeah, they
Okay.
won't be changed.
Okay, maybe we don't need to,
We just take
No
notes.
I can take my research brain off, I'm just.
Yeah, no, it's really helpful that you brought it up because we hadn't
It
thought
is.
about it. So
We
we
could
will-
ask.
We will
I think we
ask.
should ask.
I
I
think we
just
definitely
wanna
ask.
dot all our i's
Yep.
and cross
Yeah,
all our t's and
absolutely.
not have somebody.
For
be
sure.
upset.
Yeah, the idea was to take notes without names.
Yeah,
But I was not thinking that these notes would be FOIA-able because I think we want them to be there for a really specific I don't know, I just wasn't thinking about that, but I think that's a great question, so I will find out.
yeah, I mean, it's just usually typical when you do an interview that
Yeah,
like you say,
consent.
we appreciate you being interviewed, you consent to this, if at any time you decide
Yeah.
you don't want us to use your information, you
Yeah.
need to let, right, like all
Yeah.
those sorts of things.
Standard.
It's a standard protocol.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Add that
Okay.
into this script.
Do you guys have any questions before you talk about this to each other?
No, are we like finding students that we?
So, yeah, so
That
I
would be
think
great.
what we'll do, since I'm gonna be your person, is the three of us will talk and figure out kind of a plan first, so don't go asking anyone yet. Cause I think we'll wanna just have a plan first, and like we said, we'll have to think about, parent guardian consent, all that stuff. Think all that. Okay. But yes, we'd love for you guys to help us with that part in particular. And I think part of that would be thinking about how to create a representative group.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, thought that would be a good challenge for you guys. All right, excellent. So now we have everyone's assignments, marching orders. We'll let you know. Yeah, thank you. Great. And at the time, I don't know if anyone heard this, Carrie asked what the timeline was. We would like to wrap these up ideally by April 10th, but definitely before April break.
So does that mean providing you with the notes by that date?
In the best case scenario, yes.
So are we now reaching out to these?
So
folks,
I'm
or-
assembling a contact
Okay,
list.
okay.
So I'm just like a little day
That's okay.
behind on that, but.
That's all right.
And our work is happening at the same time as our consultant is
Yeah.
doing her list.
I just wanted to make sure I just want to know when
Yeah,
I
yeah,
needed to
no,
start.
I'll let you know when
Yeah.
that's ready. I have a spreadsheet already started, but I'm just still populating it, so it should be clear who is in what group and blah, 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 but we'll go from there.
Okay.
And I have a sample email for outreach too. Great. So it should be easy.
Are we compiling it all in one place though?
I do have a folder.
Okay. Yeah, that would be helpful, so we can drop it all into one place for collating.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, I'll share you all in the folder. 3 hours.
Okay, I just wanna make sure we're not supposed to.
Okay.
So
I think
you're
that's
the
all I
point
have in me.
person.
I'm the point person.
I just
for
wanna
that.
make
That's
sure
for
that we're on the
Yep.
folder.
Yep, I'm the point person for that folder. Right now, it is
Just
only
you.
shared the 2 of us. No
Okay.
one else is on right now.
Just make sure there's not
I don't think you can share it with all of us.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's
Wanna
true.
make
Right
sure
now,
that
it's just the
you're-
2 of us.
Yep, I think we should just send them to you two and you can.
I'll send documents as you need them, like contact lists, I will have to send you.
Yeah.
Yep, all right. Excellent. Okay.
Fantastic. Anything else before we, okay. All right, just that Friday, April 3rd, there's some school committee office hours from 10 to 11:30 on Zoom with Carrie and Maria.
I think it's usually, we've been posting 90 minutes, but it feels like they've only been going for an hour, so I don't know.
I feel like this
Feels
one
like
for some
an
reason was
appropriate
90 minutes, but the other ones were 60. I don't know why this one came to be.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Anyway.
that's a long time.
That is a long
It's been a
time.
long time.
That is a.
I just
You
meant,
wanna
yeah, just.
Maybe we'll
Okay.
update the time.
Yeah.
We'll take a motion to adjourn here.
Motion to adjourn on 2.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.